Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the final day of the first preseason test and day 3 of F1 2020 preseason testing. And today, of course, it is, or right now, it's going to be, in about 30 minutes time, the afternoon session for day 3 of testing. Hopefully you guys, no matter where you are in the world, are having a good day. And hopefully with me, you're going to watch along or listen along to the events of day 3, the afternoon session, again, of pre-season testing. Of course, we have had some running this morning, which I'll get into in a moment, and also to do with some certain stories from yesterday, such as that DAS system on the Mercedes and other things. There are some updates to those stories, which I'll get into soon enough. But I think, again, because we've had some running this morning, let's get into those lap times. And we have had a very, very quick lap time this morning. And if you look at, say, the 3 days or 2.5 days of testing so far, we have now got, I guess, our fastest lap or lap record of testing so far. Not the outright lap record, but a very quick lap compared to, say, the quickest lap of yesterday or day 1 indeed. So let's go on to this. So these are the, I guess, results so far of day 3 of testing. Valtteri Bottas is fastest on a 1 minute 15.7. He's done 65 laps as well. Of course, Bottas had reliability issues at the end of day 2, an electrical issue on his car. Obviously, the car is now fine, which is, I guess, from Mercedes' point of view, great to see. But a 1:15.7 is, well, again, compared to what they were doing yesterday, or what any team was doing yesterday, is very quick. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. But he did do it on the C5 compound, which is the softest compound, and he is still 0.3 of a second away from his pole position of last year. So even though it's quick, it is still, for me, quite a bit off what he could do or what the team could do in that car at the absolute most, you know, with the lowest fuel load and the highest engine mode. I still think they have, you know, another 1.5 seconds probably, you know, that they're capable of to produce from that car. So it's quick, but I can guarantee you guys they can go a lot quicker than that, especially as well on that C5 compound of tyre. And then in second place, Esteban Ocon, 1 minute 17.2, 76 laps. That is almost the same amount of laps the whole team did yesterday on day 2. So reliability looking better for Renault, sorry, which is a good thing, of course, because in day 1 and day 2, their reliability and track time was not very good at all during, you know, day 1 and day 2 of testing. But a 1:17.1, again, it might sound good, but if you consider what tyres he was on, the C4 compound, I have to say it really is not an impressive lap time. And I know, of course, he's not going to be pushing as hard as possible on all of the fuel and engine modes and everything like that. But Renault so far, out of all the teams, I'd say are one of the top 2 or 3 that have been pushing the hardest so far in testing. So yeah, that is not that impressive of a time at all. Lance Stroll, 1 minute 17.3, also on the C4 compound, which I think for him is a good time, because if you look at the lap time he did in qualifying last year, it was like I think an 18.2 on the same tyre. So I think for Stroll, that's definitely a good time, and there's definitely more time to come from the Racing Point overall. So I think Stroll could be happy with that. And then Kvyat 4th, 17.4. I think he also did it on the C4 compound to Kvyat. Now, I still think with the AlphaTauri, there's a lot more pace to come. I think AlphaTauri, out of all of the teams in the midfield, I think they are sandbagging, maybe not the most, but they are definitely one of the most conservative teams so far in testing, in terms of not really going for it on a single lap compared to, say, again, Renault, Racing Point, even Alfa Romeo to a certain degree, who started late yesterday to show how quick they really were. Max Verstappen 5th, 17.6, 86 laps. Good reliability there for Red Bull. Most laps done so far on day 3. And I think that lap time, again, Red Bull, you know, are still quite a bit away from what they're capable of and of what we all know they're capable of. But that lap time was done on a C2 compound of tyres. So that's actually not too bad of a lap time. That's actually not too bad. Again, they're way too far off what I think their maximum pace is around this track to really say whether they are quick enough compared to Mercedes or Ferrari, but that's not too bad of a lap time, that. Antonio Giovinazzi 6th, 18 flat, 65 laps. I can't remember what tyre he did his time on. I think it might have been the C3. And if it is, then it's I guess at best an okay lap time. But as I said yesterday of Alfa Romeo, when Kimi Raikkonen did that C5 tyre timed lap at the end of day 2 on a 17.0, considering the tyre he was on, it was not at all an impressive lap time. I think quite the opposite. So yeah, Alfa kind of disappointing when it comes to their single lap pace or their attempts with lower fuel on board compared to other teams. Carlos Sainz 7th, 118.2, 76 laps. McLaren, I think today are doing what they did yesterday, and that is just concentrating on heavier fuel runs and trying to get a balance over a race distance. Romain Grosjean 8th. I think Haas have got to be the team in the midfield that are sandbagging the most, because they haven't ever shown so far in testing, I think, what they are capable of. And I think they are capable of going much faster than what they have done so far. So I think Haas are definitely, and I think rightfully so, not concentrating heavily on single lap pace, because last year their single lap pace was fine. It was their race pace that was a problem. So I think that's a good thing there. Sebastian Vettel 9th, only 40 laps, 118.3. Sebastian Vettel having an engine problem in the morning, and that's why he only did 40 laps. That is obviously not good news. I still think Ferrari are sandbagging quite heavily, just like the other two top teams. But I will say, now we're 2.5 days in, I think they are probably sandbagging the most out of the top 3 teams. That isn't to say they are the best team in terms of pace. We don't know yet. But I think they are sandbagging the most out of the top 3 teams. And I think it would be very foolish to think that Mercedes and Red Bull are clearly ahead, because I don't think we've seen, again, from any of the top 3 teams, anywhere close to what they can actually do. And then Nicholas Latifi, 119.0, 44 laps. He also had a problem, I think, with his engine as well. And I'm sure he can go faster than a 119.0 in the Williams. And, talking of yesterday, as I was briefly with, Kimi Raikkonen's lap time, let's quickly look back at yesterday's lap time. So Raikkonen, 17 flat, and then Perez 17.3, Ricciardo 17.7, Albon 17.9, Gasly 18.1, Vettel 18.1, Russell 18.2, Leclerc 18.3, Hamilton 18.3, Norris 18.4, and then Grosjean 18.4. And I think you can see there with Haas, again, they are running nowhere near their potential. I think they can go at the very least 2 seconds quicker than that. Once they turn everything up to the absolute maximum. And then Ocon 18.5 and Bottas 19.3. So those are the results of day 2. And obviously, if we go back, they can see again the day 3 results so far in 2020 pre-season testing, with 4 hours of the first test still to come. But I think now cut back to this, the slideshow of cars. Let's get into some news to do with all the teams. So, let's start off with the Silver Arrows Mercedes-Benz. The DAS system that we were going on about endlessly yesterday, the steering system that is adjusting the toe down the straight, which, by the way, I have done some further digging into that, and Mercedes are very, very smart. They are very, very smart, because I think according to the regulations, adjusting the toe doesn't fall under something that is illegal. So I think they have, well, rightfully so, because the regulations don't say they're illegal. I think they've got away with it in a good way. And by the sounds of it, the FIA are going to allow them to use it for the 2020 Formula 1 season. But they have said that it will be banned for 2021. So I mean, maybe Ferrari and Red Bull will come up with their own, but I don't think any of the midfield teams will, because what's the point, spending all that money on a device that's going to be banned in a year's time? There is no point. I think for the top teams there is, because, if the pace is there for all top three teams to be winning races, most, races during a season, then they could justify bringing it. But for the midfield, I just don't see how they could justify it. And good to Steiner said this yesterday. It's a very good point. Midfield teams just cannot justify spending that time and money on researching, developing, and actually having that device. So, yeah, I think this system, I mean, obviously at the moment everyone's talking about it. And I think we will, talk about it a bit more as the season goes on, especially if Ferrari and Red Bull bring theirs, respectively, their own versions. But it's, going to be a minor innovation in Formula One. Because, again, next year it will be banned, which, is it a good thing or not? I don't know. But, there's so many aerodynamic changes to the cars next year. I don't think it really matters. I don't think we're really going to be caring that the steering wheel doesn't move in and out. There's going to be, again, plenty of other things going on for 2021. For Ferrari, let's get into them. And as I said a minute ago with Ferrari, in terms of, I think they're sandbagging the most, I think they're basically just confirming that with what they're saying in the media. Charles Leclerc, after day one, was saying that they've clearly, gone for a different program, and that they are, they're not being as aggressive in terms of their lap times here in testing like they were last year, where they topped almost every single session. And they're concentrating a lot more on, race pace or heavier fuel running than, again, they were this time last year. And I think that just confirms, and I think Sebastian Vettel kind of confirmed that as well yesterday. Again, just confirms that Ferrari are running a lot more of a conservative program this year in testing than they were last year. And I think, honestly, that's a good thing to see, because if you're a top team and you reckon you've got a pretty quick car, you don't need to reveal your hand in testing. I mean, of course, you do need eventually, and we will see every team eventually do a proper low fuel run by the time we get to the end of testing this time next week, next Friday. But again, you don't need to show your hands so quickly, and I think Ferrari have rightfully learnt that and are just concentrating on working on the balance of the car, and also working on the balance over a race fuel load, which, again, as I said yesterday plenty of times, race pace in Formula One, in my opinion, is more important than qualifying pace. And their race pace last season obviously was a massive issue. So, yeah, Ferrari, I think this year definitely running more of a correct pre-season testing program. And again, I think they are definitely sandbagging the most out of all of the teams so far after 2.5 days of running. Maybe in the afternoon session, if they get the car fixed, maybe we will see, say a similar type fueled run as Valtteri Bottas did in the morning, and maybe we will see a Ferrari in the low 16s or even in the 1-minute 15s. But if they don't, then I think we can absolutely say that Ferrari have shown nothing close to what they are actually capable of in 2020. So if you are a Ferrari fan, calm down. Everything's fine. Again, I don't think anyone out there can absolutely say how quick the Ferrari car is. I did hear Ted Kravitz yesterday talking about how Red Bull are definitely ahead of Ferrari, which I think is absolutely incorrect to say. Not that Red Bull are not ahead of Ferrari, but we don't know if they are. We don't know if Ferrari are ahead. We don't know who is ahead in the top three team bracket. So I think it's way too early for anyone to say that this team's ahead and this team's struggling. I think the only thing you can really look at is, again, the onboard cameras and just look at the handling of the cars. But other than that, again, way, way, way too early to say who is looking the favourite in terms of the championship in the top three teams and who is looking to have the quickest car. Way too early, and I think we won't really find out or have a decent idea probably until day 5 of testing, which of course is next Thursday. So, hopefully we see some lower fuel running from Ferrari, because then obviously we want to get a a better idea earlier on than just day 5 of testing. But yeah, most likely they will do, I think, a race run in the afternoon. But guys, let me come to you guys in the chat. Now we've got about 14 and a half minutes to go until the afternoon session for day 3 begins. Guys, let me know in the chat, what do you think of the testing so far today, the lap times and how the teams have done. And also let me know what you think of Mercedes' DAS system being banned for 2021, Ferrari. Also let me know what you think of them. And, for any other team, McLaren, Renault, how do you think they're getting on? How do you think they look? Renault, if we quickly go on to them, I think Renault are not looking impressive at all. Reliability has not been good. And I don't think the pace is as good as as some people may think. I saw Daniel Ricciardo saying that the car is quite a bit quicker, but I'm not sure it is actually as quick as maybe he's saying, or maybe expects or hopes. I don't think the Renault is looking, I don't think it's looking bad, but I don't think it's looking, very good. Of course, long way to go in testing, but yeah, not looking great or, again, very good for the Renault team. But yeah, let me know for the other teams. What do you think of the other teams so far in testing? How do you think they look? And yeah, let me know in the chat. But before I come to you guys in the chat, as you may hear, I do have a sore throat. I did only wake up about an hour and a half ago. So let me have a quick drink and then I'll read all your comments in the chat. Right. And by the way, great to see 179 of you watching live. Great to see you all here. And again, if you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I'll be uploading later on at 7 PM UK time a review of day 3. And then, of course, next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to do the same again. I'm probably going to be live in the morning for day 4, which is next Wednesday, and then upload a review that evening. Same for Thursday and Friday with the reviews that evening. And then I'll be live next Thursday and Friday afternoon as well for testing. So again, if you are new, don't forget to subscribe, bottom right of the screen. You can do it right there. Or go to my homepage, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and smash the like button, please. If you do want to see this content continue, because it does help me see if you guys actually do, want or enjoy the content. Right. Let's take a look at these comments. AU Marcus, not bad, but not very good. Lol. Yeah, I think with Renault, it's just kind of 50-50. There's definitely more pace to come, but I think that goes for everyone. But I think from what we've seen so far, we can't say it's been a good testing of, good first 3 days of testing. They've been out on track, I think, the least out of anyone. And when the car has ran on lower fuel, it hasn't looked particularly great. So, yeah, it's kind of 50-50 on Renault at the moment. I'm not sure if they've got a not good car or a good car. I think during the second test, we'll definitely get basically confirmation of that. I will say at the moment, though, I think Racing Point at this current point, no pun intended, probably do have a better car than the Renault. I think it looks better on track, and I think Racing Point, in the hands of Sergio Perez, over a single lap, I think the Racing Point probably at the moment is faster than the Renault. Doesn't mean the Renault will be faster, or the Renault won't be faster once we get to Melbourne, because I'm sure all the teams are going to bring new aerodynamic pieces to the second test and to Melbourne, so it could be completely different. But I think at this current point, I think Racing Point are ahead of Renault, which for Renault is not great. But again, there's plenty of time to correct that, so it's not an alarming thing at the moment, with only 2.5 days of testing underway. Right. Let's get into these comments. Mackay Minter, been kind of under a rock. What happened to Kubica? Well, if it's, why he's not on the grid, well, he left Williams. I think he was more so him leaving Williams. He kind of got disillusioned with Formula One, and obviously the car was shit, so why would he want to stay? And now he is the test driver at Alfa Romeo and did do the morning session in day one and actually didn't do too bad. I thought he did pretty well in the morning session. Didn't go off the track. His lap time was decent considering it was day one. So yeah, I think a good little test or first 4 hours of testing there for Kubica. But yeah, he's now the test driver at Alfa, and I think he will play an important role for Alfa Romeo this season, because if the car, starts to hit a bit of a rocky patch, then they're going to have to kind of rely on him to give that critical, feedback as to where the car needs to improve. And looking at it from on board, when we saw an on board of the Alfa Romeo yesterday, I said it in my day review of testing from yesterday, day 2. It's still, and it did look last year, even though last year it was quick at certain races, it does look a very ponderous car. It hasn't got great front end or rear end grip, but it's not unstable. It's just extremely balanced, but almost too balanced, too stable. It's not got enough, I guess, turn in, or the rear doesn't come around quick enough, but it does look very ponderous overall. Doesn't mean, again, it's a bad car, but it's not, it didn't impress me when I saw the onboard of the Alfa Romeo. Right. Let me find some other comments here. You guys. I reckon Ricciardo knows a fast car when he sees one, mate. I'm not sure about that. And I think, you can't read that much. I mean, you can read some, something into what drivers say about the cars, but I wouldn't believe everything a driver says or anything anyone says, about their cars. And I think Renault, honestly, tend to be one of those teams that will say their car's good when actually it's not. So, yeah. They need to prove it. And from so far, again, not reliable as other teams, and the car on track looks okay. Nothing to get excited about. Barco's, I think Merck put all they had in 2020 since the regs will change for 2021, and hear Allison say they started 2 years ago on the 2021 car. I didn't hear that, but that is a terrifying thought. So thanks for saying that. But yeah, well, if you guys were, watching my videos last year, you would have known that Mercedes were concentrating on 2020 a lot earlier than other teams. Their last big upgrade of 2020 was at Hockenheim, which I'm sure was finished and ready to be on the car probably 2 or 3 weeks before. So basically, they started working on 2020 at the, British Grand Prix halfway through the season, when Ferrari, I think, didn't start working fully on 2020 probably until October. Red Bull, I think, probably started working on 2020 at a similar-ish time to Mercedes. Probably not as soon as, but, around the same time as we were going into the summer break. I know McLaren were working on the 2020 car after the French Grand Prix. So I think the earliest team to commit to 2020 fully was probably McLaren. Doesn't mean they're going to be quick, though, obviously. And then the other teams, I think Racing Point, to a certain degree, were kind of looking a bit more towards 2020, say towards the summer break. And then I'm sure Williams as well would probably, after the first few races already, using the rest of 2019 as a test bed for 2020, which is the only thing they could do. So, but yeah, for Mercedes, if they are still stunningly quick, I mean, of course, it is down to their brilliant engineering and their brilliant team, but it also is down to the fact that they worked on their car a lot earlier than most teams on the grid. So, yeah, but obviously, we'll see if they do have the best car. And again, way too early to tell if they do have the fastest car in Formula One at the moment. I mean, hopefully we do see a Red Bull or a Ferrari this afternoon use the C5 tyre and try and do a similar run to Bottas, but if we don't, then it just leaves more questions, of course, than answers. Racing Point will fight the top teams this year. I don't think they will. I think at best they'll be front of the midfield if they keep up this this pace and this clear, massive improvement on last year. But yeah, I don't think they'll be fighting the top teams. But they're looking strong, definitely. They're looking like, I think definitely Racing Point, you can say this season, after already the 2.5 days of testing, they are going to be a front of the midfield contending team. I'm not saying they're going to be locking out the fourth row and, you know, be that quick like McLaren were last year, but I think definitely with Sergio Perez, you could expect plenty of top 10 qualifying and finishing positions, and with Stroll in the race as well. It's clear to see they do have a very quick car there. Simon Troop, what surprises do you think could happen in Melbourne? I think it's kind of too early to tell. It depends on, really, once we get to the end of testing, you know, the end of day 6, and then we look at all the lap times and what tyres they were done on. I think from that, then you could say, you know, maybe this team is still holding back a bit and we might be surprised by them. But yeah, I think it's too early to say. I will say, though, I think there's a couple teams that you shouldn't count out in terms of their car and their speed. AlphaTauri, I think, are definitely one team that, again, a lot more to show from them. And I think Haas F1, I think, definitely can go a lot quicker as well. So don't think their car is slow. It's definitely not. I definitely think the AlphaTauri car is not a great car compared to the midfield, but it's definitely not a bad car. Looking at it from on board, it looks very well balanced, and I think definitely they are doing longer fuel runs than, say, Racing Point have at times, or Renault. So yeah, don't count out those two teams for a bit of a surprise in the second test. But for the first race, yeah, it's hard to say. I guess the only surprise, you know what? The only surprise you could maybe say is Williams. Maybe they won't be too bad in the first qualifying session in Melbourne. Maybe they won't have both cars on the back row of the grid, which I guess would be a surprise. But yeah, I think, yeah, that's the only team I can think of right now that maybe could surprise. But all the other teams, again, too early to say about what they're going to do in Melbourne. And Ben Farrell says, Renault, I feel like it's over promising yet again. I think 2020 with the last straw for Ricciardo, they should be doing far better. Yeah. Renault should, again, they should be better. I've said this so many times in the last few months. They should be better this year. But in my mind, when I say that, I don't think that they necessarily will. Because, I mean, in 2019, Renault should have had a strong season. You know, with the drivers they had, with what they did in 2018, they should have had a strong season, but it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So, yeah, it is disappointing with Renault, and I hope they, you know, do show a lot more speed and also reliability in the second test. I think definitely the reliability and track time is something they've got to work on for the second test, but I hope we see a lot more from Renault in the second test. But yeah, initial thoughts are not great on Renault, but they've got plenty of time to fix that. But it didn't really start off well, did it, this year? I mean, they didn't even have their car at the car launch or any part of the 2020 car at the car launch. They just showed a computer-generized, you know, glimpse of the car, which is not really a car reveal. It's just, you know, a smallish kind of picture of what the car is going to look like, which is not really anything at all. Anyway, I think, guys, it is now time to now get ready for pre-season testing, or the afternoon session of day 3 of pre-season testing. So let me just get everything up for you guys, and let me adjust that picture slightly. There you go. So, by the way, these are all the drivers that have took part today. So, the top 10 is obviously the results from the morning. And then Ricciardo, Norris, Gasly, Magnussen, Albon, and Hamilton will be stepping in for the afternoon ahead of their respective teammates. And let me just get the session timer up for you guys. And again, it is, if you didn't know, 4 hours, the afternoon session. And as soon as I can sync up the timer, I will make sure to do so. Yeah, afternoon session is, well, now just about started. So here we go. I just want to read out a comment, though. I've just missed, and I want to make sure I read it out. Let me just scroll up. There you go. Agent Smith. This is a great comment about the channel. Great channel, and especially your in-season analysis when a crash or something odd happens. That frame-by-frame analysis is great. Keep up the good work, mate. Thanks for your videos. Thank you very, very much for that. And yeah, that will continue this year, of course, especially the incident analysis. It will be called something different. I'll probably just get rid of the word incident and just call it analysis. But yeah, that will continue, and I'm looking to do it in a even more detailed and better way for this year. Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. And by the way, also, good news, we are 90 subs away from 10,000 subscribers. So, if you are new to the channel and you want to see this channel get to 10,000, you know, by the end of this stream, then, yeah, give it a subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or, again, go to the homepage and do it there. And, as well, hit the notifications bell. And, again, keep smashing that like button over the next 4 hours or so, as some pictures are taking, or clips of the crowd. Lots of Ferrari caps and shirts in there. So yeah, and well, when I went to testing last year, it was the same thing. There was so many Ferrari fans there. There was even a guy dressed in a complete Ferrari uniform, red Ferrari jacket with the Ferrari logo on it, red Ferrari pants, white Ferrari logoed shirt, and a Ferrari hat with the Italian flag on it, and a massive flag, you know, a flag on a pole that he's waving around the track. So, yeah, Ferrari and their presence, not only with the team but their fans, is definitely here at pre-season testing. Right. Let's and they're just showing a replay, I think, of the morning on the TV. By the way, if you want to watch along the session, then it is on Sky Sports F1 if you have Sky Sports F1 in the UK. So you can watch along there. As they're just showing a replay of Bottas doing his DAS system thing in the morning on the C2 compound. And Max Verstappen pushing very hard in the morning. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, if you want to watch along the session with me, Sky Sports F1 in the UK, you can watch the session and listen to me. But if you can't watch the session because you're busy doing something, or you just can't watch it for some reason, then make sure to just keep tuned into this stream, and I will update you with everything that goes on in the next 4 hours or so. And don't forget, guys, or don't worry, guys, the time on the screen I will get up as soon as they start showing it on the live broadcast, whenever that is. So don't worry, I will show it, but just not immediately. Let me just look at the chat if I can. Reza says some thoughts on F1 in general. Aside from Vettel's 2010 to 2013 season, dominant team and boring races doesn't stop me from watching F1. Anyone feel the same? Yeah, I feel the same. I don't care who wins the race. If Lance Stroll won every single race, but all the races were great, I wouldn't care. All I want is great wheel-to-wheel and exciting races and racing. That's all I want. Couldn't care less who wins the race and, you know, who finishes where. I have absolutely no stake in this game, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I don't care. And I think that's the way it should be. I mean, of course, if you're a fan of a driver, yeah, I get it. But if your certain driver doesn't do particularly well, doesn't mean Formula 1 is boring or the race is boring, which I've seen plenty of times. But if you are a neutral like me, when it comes to Formula 1, then yeah, who wins? And, you know, if there's dominance in the championship, I mean, yeah, it's not great because the championship excitement can add as well to the exciting races and make it even more exciting. But, I mean, last season, for example, yeah, the championship battle was over after about 7 races. But I thought last season was one of the most exciting seasons we've had in the 2010s. I mean, is it exciting as 2012? No. As 2010? No. Maybe not as exciting as, say, 2016, but I think it was a very good season. Plenty of great races. Hockenheim in there as well. Very, you know, one of the best races of all time. Brazil, of course, Silverstone, Austria, Bahrain, Canada. Just so many great races. And I think 2019 is definitely going to be a season that in the future we will forget how great of a season it really was. Yeah, there was a bit of a lull for 3 or 4 races, but that happens sometimes in Formula 1. But yeah, I think in the future, you know, in 5-6 years' time, we're going to forget how great of a season 2019 actually was. As Renault are getting Daniel Ricciardo ready. And no one still has been on track. Track is still empty. So, yeah, we just, we wait. Talking of Renault, that's a picture of the Renault from earlier. Or from yesterday. Kiri Illuminati, do you think F1 would be less entertaining if there were no crashes or reliability issues, just everyone finishing? Do I think it'd be less entertaining if there were no crashes? Again, I don't think it necessarily matters that. Because again, and normally when there's more cars finishing, it actually makes the races better, because let's say there's a big battle going on for 3rd place between 4 cars. If 3 of those cars drop out before halfway into the race, then it's just one car touring around in the middle of nowhere. And I think, honestly, compared to the old days of Formula 1, that is a problem. I mean, in the olden days, you know, 20 years ago, or even 25 years ago, the races weren't bad, but the races could have been even better if the reliability was better. Because there were so many, back then, great drivers or teams that were not able to finish the race because, again, the reliability of those cars was so bad. So I actually think the more people that finish a race, the better the races will probably tend to be honest. I mean, of course, it does make it a bit exciting when, you know, a top team has a reliability issue, or say both cars retire from the race, like when Mercedes did in Austria in 2018. That was, you know, I guess quite exciting. And that did allow the midfield to score more points than usual. But I think, honestly, yeah, more cars finishing is probably more exciting, because, again, it just allows for there to be more battles on the circuit than, you know, ending up at the end of the race with about, you know, like it used to be 30 years ago, with 7 or 8 cars left at the end of the race and none of them anywhere close to each other. As first car on track is Antonio Giovinazzi, who is currently going around on the C2 compound. And I think in about 30 seconds time, guys, I'll be able to sync up the timer. And Giovinazzi so far today has done about 68 laps. He's done 67, but he's about to do 68. And it looks like he is now doing a race run in the Alfa Romeo. And let me just get this timer synced up. 3, 2, 1. And, oh no. Let me hide that. I've messed that up. I'll do it again in a minute or so. But yeah, coming back to your comment, yeah, more cars finishing I would prefer, because, again, that just means more battles on track than, again, just 8 cars barely surviving the race and touring around, you know, half a minute apart from each other. But there you go. Right, we've got 20 seconds till I'm going to sync up the timer. Giovinazzi does a 121.8, so yep, definitely on a race run. And for a, if that is on race fuel load, that they would use, you know, 66 laps worth of fuel, that's an expected time, so not too bad for Antonio Giovinazzi. And this time, 3, 2, 1. There you go. 3 hours and 50 minutes to go. And let me go up Twitter so I can post some pictures for you guys. Once, of course, pictures appear on the Twitter. Let me read the chat. Good morning, Chaz. I hope all is well from Michael Arvin. Good morning to you. It is afternoon for me, but, well, I'm guessing it's morning for you. Right. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Missed this morning's session. Who do you think is looking good, Chazza? I know it's just testing, but what do you make of Ferrari not getting a whole lot of running? I think that's the only concern from Ferrari is that I know they had a problem this morning, but that's the only concern is that before that problem, they weren't doing a lot of laps. Maybe it's because they don't want to show off their power unit. Maybe it's even stronger than last year. I don't know, but that's the only concern is that they haven't done as much running as Mercedes and Red Bull have. Which I don't know why they would do that. Again, they did have a problem this morning, so that won't help. But in the first 2 full days of testing, I mean, they weren't doing, you know, as bad as Renault in terms of running, but they weren't doing, you know, they were like 50 laps off what Mercedes have been doing per day. So, bit of a concern there. But yeah, with the pace of the Ferrari, again, can't say. They're definitely sandbagging heavily at the Scuderia. But who's looking good? I think the only teams so far you can say looking good, Racing Point, definitely. Williams looking a lot better than last year. And other than that, hard to say. I think, well, the Mercedes car looks still good, but it's difficult to say if it looks as good as last year, if not better. So, yeah, I think the only teams, again, as I've said in the past couple of days, the only teams so far you can definitely tell are looking good is Racing Point and Williams. All the other teams, I think definitely we need to see a bit more of what they've got before we make a certain judgment. As Antonio Giovinazzi still only car on track on his race run on the C2 compound of tyre. Crawford Brown 75. Chaz, I know you're wanting to pave your own path, but are you in communication with F1 Word? No, I used to be, of course. If anyone was watching his streams from what, late 2017 up until mid 2018, then you would have heard me on his streams. But obviously since then I haven't been on. But no. I wouldn't mind going back on, but obviously it's not my decision. But you know, I don't really care if I'm going on anyone else's channel or not at the moment. Right. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Ben Farrell asks, Chaz, do you ever feel like F1 is inaccessible for working men who want to break into racing at a later age? I'm 20 years old and want to race, but I feel like it's too late to break into it. I think that's only because the drivers and them getting into Formula 1 is just getting younger. I don't think necessarily it's inaccessible. I think that's more so maybe... How do I say this? I don't think that's a certainty that it's inaccessible. I think it's more so an opinion, maybe of yourself, maybe of other people. But I mean, look at the, you know, the 70s or the 80s. Many of the drivers who debuted in Formula 1 were what, 24, 25? I'm not saying, of course, you're going to be in Formula 1 in 4 or 5 years, but you know what I mean? I don't think it matters, to be honest, how old you are. As long as you're quick and quick enough for a Formula 1 team, they will put you in your in their car. That's all that matters. And it's same thing comes to, the whole, will women race in Formula One again? Yes, they will, once there is a female driver that is quick enough. And the teams, I can tell you now, the teams do not care how old you are, what your gender is. They don't care. As long as you are quick enough, that's all they care about, the teams, is pace. As long as you're quick enough, they'll put you in your car. If there was a dog out there that was able to drive a Formula One car quicker than Lewis Hamilton, it would be in a Formula One car. I can promise you that. So, I think the age thing, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, because again, the drivers are so young nowadays. I mean, half the grid is seemingly under 25 years old. But as long as you're quick enough, I don't think it matters how old you are. I mean, look at Nicholas Latifi. He's not young. Considering, again, how normally other drivers, when they debut in Formula One, tend to be a lot younger. And he, I think, is definitely quick enough for Formula One, or quick enough for Williams. So, as long as you've got the pace, I don't think it matters, to be honest. Because again, all the teams care about is speed. They don't care who it comes from and how they get it. That's all they care about. Right. Agent Smith, imagine a dog with a helmet. Let me just see if there's any pictures I can find. You know what? Before I come back to the chat, and by the way, just to update you guys, Antonio Giovinazzi is still going around on the track doing his race runs, so don't worry, nothing dramatic's going on. I just want to read a quote from Mattia Binotto on the DAS system that's just come out. He says, more than making life difficult, Mercedes, through queries to the FIA, we want to make it difficult on the track for them. We don't have an evaluation of the maximum potential of the SF1000 yet. We will do it next week when we start working on it. So there you go, confirmation that Ferrari are sandbagging heavily. Not to say Mercedes and Red Bull aren't, but Ferrari definitely avoiding lower fuel and higher engine mode running. And then he says this is more so to do with, the pace of their car and what they've done so far. He says, difficult to say if we are faster than the others. We have some concerns at the moment. And as I said, we are not as optimistic as we were last year. That's interesting. We cannot say that we have the speed that you would expect, but it's a very long season with a lot of time to work. That to me says that from their data, they're not as happy as they would have wanted to be at this point of testing. But again, way too early to say how quick they really are. And by the way, me reading those quotes came from at Vettel Leclerc, or Tammy, on Twitter. If you're not following that account, by the way, and you're a Ferrari fan, then you're doing yourself a massive injustice, because she has all of the news on Ferrari and also other teams as well, Mercedes and Red Bull, and a couple other teams as well. But if you are a Ferrari fan, you've got to follow her on Twitter. And really, if you're a Formula One fan, you've got to follow her on Twitter. She's so good at translating, the articles from abroad and giving news. She's very, very good at it. So if you're not following her on Twitter, again, I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, no other new pictures I can see at the moment. So we'll come back to, and by the way, just seeing on Twitter that McLaren have a new front wing today. That's interesting. We'll take a further look at that probably next week or the week after. Chazza, if I may ask, are you a Ferrari fan? No, I'm not a fan of any team or driver. If they win, then yeah, fine. If they don't, then same, yeah, fine. I don't really care who wins the races. But Ferrari, I think, considering what they have at the moment, should be doing better than what they've been doing. I'm not saying they should be winning the championship, but they shouldn't be, like last season. They shouldn't be that far off in speed and be that embarrassing with race pace like they were. So hopefully this season is a bit better. Right. And actually, I think, let me just try and just need to try and shrink that slightly so the text fits on better. There you go. And don't worry, guys, the order is still the same. On track right now, we have Giovinazzi, Vettel in the Ferrari, Gasly, and Ricciardo. Gasly has just set a lap time. And it is very slow. And now Ricciardo's gone into P10 on a 1 minute 18.8. So let me just update that for you guys. So Ricciardo in P10 as Gasly locks up his inside front at turn 10. Been doing that a lot, AlphaTauri. Locking up the inside front. Here's Vettel on probably a race-ish run on the C2. Yeah, Ricciardo 11th. And let's see how the front end is in turn 10. It wasn't good yesterday. Is it good today? Yes, you know what? Slightly better today. A bit better today. The front end looking through that corner. So good to see that it's not as bad looking as yesterday. Yesterday, the front end was nowhere near the apex of that corner. So yeah, Latifi down to P11, and then Pierre Gasly is in 12th place as Sebastian Vettel comes to the line. Does he improve a lap time? No, he does not. Yeah, Gasly 12th, and then Lando Norris is in 13th position. So, there you go. As Vettel continues around the C2, and let's see what his first sector time is like. And, yeah, definitely a race run, because he's second off Valtteri Bottas' fastest first sector. So, yeah, definitely on a race run is Sebastian Vettel. Let me come back to you guys in the chat. Super Mario Riley, Chaz, do you think Williams will fight for podiums or even wins in 2021? Way too early to say, of course, but if they can just make progression year on year, then they can get back to how they were, say, in 2017, which I think for them, considering, and well, the front end of the Ferrari did not go into turn 10 that time. You know, if they get back to that position, then I think considering financially what they're capable of, I think that'd be all right enough. But even though Williams are definitely much improved on last year with the speed of the car, which is not a surprise, but still very good to see, Williams should still not be this slow. They are the Williams F1 team. They have won so many world championships. They dominated Formula One a couple times for a couple years, 86 and 87 in terms of the speed of the car. And then 92 to 97. So for Williams, they should be doing a lot better. Good to see they're improving, but still nowhere near good enough. I think Williams, honestly, should be, at the very least, a top 5 constructors finishing position team. That's what they should be at the least. Again, considering they are Williams. And also considering their financial capabilities. Right. Ewok, everyone is a Ferrari fan. Let me look at some other comments here if I can. And also, let me take a quick look at Twitter. If there's any new pictures, there is not. And Bonotto also saying, by the way, that next week you will see an ASF 1000 car. Obviously, that's a 2020 Ferrari car that is very similar to the one on the track now, but we will focus on performance. So that I think that destroys any rumors that they were going to do a Mercedes and bring a B car to the second test. That obviously Mercedes did last year. So yeah. Right. Let's look at some other comments here. Vettel very bad. Super Kev, seriously, I'm more pumped about the midfield battle. Who will get 4th? Racing Point have bought their way to it, in my honest opinion. I think again, is it with Racing Point? I think definitely they are going to be the biggest improvers from the midfield in terms of lap time out of anyone from that midfield pack. But I mean, even if it is a 2019 Mercedes car, McLaren and Renault should still be beating them. It's Racing Point. It's not, they're not coming up against this massive manufacturer. And again, it's last year's car. So, I mean, look at Haas, for example, in 2018. Apparently, the Haas of 2018 was mostly a 2017 Ferrari with a bit more power, or quite a bit more power. Haas, pace-wise, should have finished in P4 on the Constructors, but they finished in 5th, because Renault did what they were expected to do, which was beat them. So, even if they do have, in a similar way to Haas from 2018, a very quick car, they still should not, McLaren and Renault, be beaten by Racing Point. Racing Point are a much smaller team. They may have, Racing Point a great knack of great trackside performance compared to McLaren and Renault in the past few years, but it's McLaren and Renault. So, I think, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Haas, I mean, they will probably be beaten by Racing Point this season, looking at, testing so far and just looking at the way the car looks. But McLaren and Renault, I'm afraid, do not have an excuse because they shouldn't be... I mean, if they lose to let's say it is an old car. If they lose to an old car, that just makes it, I think, worse for them. I don't think they've got an excuse, I'm afraid. Right, let's look at some other comments here. As we've now got Alex Albon on track, but he's just doing a bit of a tour around. Not going very quickly. Lab Gorilla, 100% Ferrari will replace Binotto after this year. Hamilton comes in with Toto. I don't think Hamilton will be coming in with Toto Wolff, but Binotto leaving Ferrari or getting demoted, definitely a possibility. If Ferrari this season have a season similar to 2020, or similar to 2019, sorry, or worse, then I think definitely it could happen. But this is the problem. With 2021 right around the corner, you then, let's say they go and hire someone who's not at Ferrari. Let's say Frederick Vasseur, who's at Alfa Romeo now. Let's say they employ him as the team boss. You're giving him a very difficult start because he can't affect anything of 2021 because all of the decisions as to car design, personnel, and all of that would have been made by Mattia Binotto. So if you're going to get rid of Binotto, you've got to wait probably until the end of 2021. So Ferrari have kind of backed themselves into a corner if Binotto again proves this year to not be good enough. I think, to be honest, 2019 was itself a sackable offence, but because it was Binotto's first year, I am willing to give him another year. If it wasn't his first year, then I would have sacked him because, it just wasn't a good year at all. But now that this is his second year, but 2021 is going to be his third year and it's just around the corner, again, I think the right decision would be to wait until the end of 2021 before replacing Binotto if indeed, again, he proves not to be good enough as Magnussen's front end is nowhere near the apex of turn 12 there. As we're watching on board on his race run on the C2 compound and understeer and oversteer through first part of the chicane. But Ferrari... And I still maintain they should not have got rid of Maurizio Arrivabene. They should have given Maurizio probably until the end of 2020 to get things sorted in terms of winning a championship or at least improving the speed of the car even more or getting closer even to winning a title, the first title since 2008. But no, they decided to go Binotto. And because of Binotto's first bad year, now they're stuck with him, I think, realistically, until the end of 2021. They shouldn't have sacked Jean Todt. Well, they didn't sack him. Jean Todt just decided to leave, I think. And Jean Todt, I think... Oh, crash. Kevin Magnussen. He's spun off into the gravel. Don't know what corner it is, but that will be a red flag. I think it is turn 5, is it? think turn 5, I think it is. No, it's the exit of turn 7 and turn 8. So he's, and yet red flag with half an hour gone in the afternoon session. But, yeah, Magnussen, I'm guessing what he's done is he has turned into turn 7 and the car has snapped away from him. And if that is the case, then that is a worry for Haas, because Romain Grosjean had a similar thing yesterday at turn 4. Was going, through turn 4, through the exit, and the car just on gradual acceleration snapped away from him and went into the barriers. So that is the same thing. Then I think definitely that is a worrisome thing for Haas. And let's see. So he comes into turn 7. And yep, same thing. Just car just completely on acceleration snaps away from him. So it's the same thing. So poor rear end grip then. I think that's clear evidence of for Haas F1. I mean, yeah, these two drivers aren't exactly safe when it comes to accidents, but Magnussen was not exactly pushing hard. He was on a long race run on the C2 compound. And I think, again, that just points to, again, rear instability on the Haas car. So that's not good for them. And that causes the first red flag of the afternoon session. Let's see if... You know what? No, I don't. I was going to say I do have a picture, but not yet. And by the way, talking of Binotto's quotes, there was another one I just saw. Another one, I think, from Ted Kravitz. So Ted Kravitz has asked Binotto a couple questions. And I'm just going to read off the answers. So Ted asked Binotto if the SF1000, the 2020 car, is more suited to Sebastian Vettel. And Binotto said that this was the intention. Make of that what you will. And then Ted Kravitz says, or asked again, or said, that Binotto said that this will be the car you will see in Melbourne with some little tweaks. So, the 2020 Ferrari that you see so far at testing is the 2020 car, but will have some, I guess, minor tweaks to all the areas. Rear end, barge board, front wing, maybe suspension as well, but nothing big. Well, if the pace of the Ferrari proves to not be good, then not looking good. But again, we have no idea. It might be the quickest car on the grid. We have no idea. But, right, back to the chat we come. Lab Gorilla says 2019 was downright criminal, Chazza. I am betting that no Ferrari driver even finishes top 3 again, and that means Binotto goes. If we're talking about the championship, then yeah, if it is worse in terms of the pace of the car than last year, then yeah, I probably agree with you there. But if you're talking no podiums at all for the entire season, then yeah, that's not going to happen. They will get some podiums if they're not too great. But yeah, that bit of news, that quote, or some quotes from Binotto, I'll be honest, if he is telling the truth and he's not doing a Toto Wolff and throwing a double 6, then that does not sound positive to me. That sounds like this is what we've got. We've got, again, little tweaks to the car coming in Melbourne, but nothing massive. And yeah, we'll show the pace of the car next week, but this is what we've got, fundamentally. But again, as I've said plenty of times, the Ferrari car is nowhere near its full potential, and it could be the best car on the grid in terms of speed. We don't know. Or it could be the second or third fastest. Again, we just have no idea. Reza, day 1 and day 2 was so good. Now red flags are dropping. Hopefully all teams can still put in the laps. It's interesting. The first red flag was actually caused on purpose. Alfa Romeo deliberately ran out of fuel at the end of day 2, which I guess is just a quick test. Tested the fuel consumption, but still not the most understandable thing ever. Right, so it was a puncture that caused Magnussen's spin and subsequent tap with the wall. So, Forget what I said about the Haas has a really unstable rear end. It was a puncture on the rear end. I don't know what tyre. We can't see. I'm going to guess it's... Through that corner, I'm probably going to guess it's the right rear. Because the right rear, you know, goes really clumping over the exit curb. So maybe it was the right rear tyre that suffered some damage there. As they're showing a replay of Jolyon Palmer, who's in the commentary box on Sky F1, having a high-speed tyre deflation in 2016. I can't remember if that was the race or not. I don't think it was the race, because I think in the race, I remember him having a collision with his teammate at the time, Kevin Magnussen. So I think it was a practice session for Palmer. But right, here we go. Here's a picture for you guys of the man who has caused the first red flag of the afternoon session. Let me just get it on screen for you guys. And adjust it, obviously. Right. So there you go. Here is Magnussen in the meh-looking Haas F1 car. And, yeah, has caused the first red flag of the afternoon session. Right, let's come back to you guys in the chat to see what you guys are saying. Ben Farrell, regardless of how Jolyon Palmer was as a driver, he has excellent analysis. He does. You cannot deny that. Just like his father, of course, because he used to be Murray Walker's co-commentator after, sadly, James Hunt passed away. Yeah, Jonathan Palmer was co-commentator on BBC television for 3.5 years. And yeah, was very detailed in his analysis. So it was kind of inevitable that he would have that type of skill when it comes to that, because again, his dad was so good at it for years. And I have to say with Jolyon Palmer, again, similar career to his dad, because Jonathan Palmer in the 80s was not a bad driver, but say at best a solid midfield driver or a lower end midfield driver, kind of like Jolyon Palmer. And then obviously went into television or, you know, media and made a good living out of that. And Jolyon has followed the exact same path. So there you go. But yeah, he's definitely very good at what he does at the moment. As well, I remember when he was interviewed, you know, after certain races or qualifying sessions when he was a driver, wasn't the most confident sounding guy. Of course, there was a couple pictures where he looked extremely lonely. You guys will know what pictures I'm talking about, where he's got his hand on his own shoulder looking into the distance. But he does sound a lot more confident in what he does now than what he was doing as a driver. So I think he definitely enjoys it. Maybe not more than driving, but he enjoys it a lot. There is no doubt about that. Mike Warvich has a how do I become an admin? I'm guessing you mean moderator. Well, if you're on Discord, then just hit me with a DM on Discord and I'll get that sorted out later on. And you'll need to give me your link to your channel name if you want to be a moderator. And then obviously I'll send you all the rules and all that stuff. So, yeah. Just give me a DM on Discord and then later on I'll sort it out once I've done all my content for today. Jules Elbers, what do you think of the new circuit, Zandvoort and Vietnam? Zandvoort, I am not optimistic about because I think it'll be great atmosphere but not that good of a Grand Prix. Hanoi, I have a lot more hope for because I think if you look at the circuit, there are certain parts of that track where I think we can get some good racing. And it's also very good to go to a track or a country that has never seen a Formula One race. So I am looking forward more so to the Vietnam Grand Prix than the race at Zandvoort. But hopefully Zandvoort proves me wrong. But yeah, Vietnam, I'm looking forward to that race. And of course, that is on the first weekend of April, which is in, 8 or 9 weeks' time from now. And yeah, looking forward to it. Why is the red flag out? Because Kevin Magnussen has suffered a tyre puncture or tyre failure, and crashed on the exit of turn 8, is it? Yeah, turn 8. And just getting his car now took back to the pits. So the session should be getting back underway in about 5 minutes' time, I'm guessing. Ewok saying Zandvoort is bad. I mean, I want to give it a chance, but when I look at the track, with these wide F1 cars, and they are very wide, these current F1 cars compared to other F1 cars, I just don't see great opportunities for racing. I think qualifying around that track could be very exciting because it does look like a very high-speed circuit, especially the end of the lap, but, with the banking. But yeah, the race itself, I'm not optimistic for. Again, qualifying I think could be pretty good, and we could see some excitement because again of how tight the track is, but the race itself might be a bit of a dull one. But let's hope that it isn't, and let's see what happens once we get to it in early May. And of course it's a week before the Spanish Grand Prix itself. By the way, more quotes from Matteo Binotto to read for you guys. Which one do I read first? Again, this is from Tammy, or at Vettel Leclerc on Twitter, who translates the articles from AMUS, which I think is Automotor und Sport in Germany, and they are the best news source or publication for Formula One in the entire world. There is no doubt about that. So Binotto, this is a quote from Matteo Binotto. This is not me saying this. This is a quote from Matteo Binotto. He says, "We are behind. We won't be adding many new parts until Melbourne. We first have to unlock the potential of the current package." Again, that does not sound good. Also, Ferrari is experimenting with extreme mechanical and aerodynamic solutions. The engineers check whether the car will respond to setup changes as the simulations predicted. And then a quote from Binotto: "As soon as we understand the car, we take care of the further development." And then he says again, and this is quite interesting that he says this: "Mercedes and Red Bull are faster." That is a quote from Matteo Binotto. "Mercedes and Red Bull are faster. We are not yet out for lap time, but we have some concerns. At the moment, we cannot say that we have the speed you would expect." Again, credit to Tammy for the translations. Fantastic as usual on her Twitter. But, well, guys, let me know in the chat, but that does not sound good if you're a Ferrari fan. He's literally said, "We are behind. Mercedes and Red Bull are faster. We are not completely up there with where we want to be, and we haven't understood our car yet." Doesn't sound good at all. Right. Let's see what you guys think of that then. But again, I mean, maybe he is doing a Toto Wolff, but he doesn't come across as a guy who would do that, or as much as Toto, because Toto is so brilliantly skilled at it. He's been doing it for years, Toto. That's, making out they're not as good as they actually are type of thing. As the session will get back underway in 3 minutes' time. But, yeah. Let me know in the chat what you think of those quotes. And again, the one where he says, "We're behind, we won't be adding many new parts, and the Mercedes and Red Bull are faster." That is a direct quote. That's not a report or a journalist saying they're behind. That is a direct quote from Binotto himself. Westbound Badger says Ferrari like to sandbag all season. That's the problem, isn't it? This sounds like he's doing the opposite of last year. I wouldn't necessarily say that though, because yeah, Lewis Hamilton, I remember saying, "Oh, we're potentially half a second a lap slower." than the Ferrari, but I definitely remember Binotto saying that it was a lot closer than what Hamilton was saying, and that Ferrari were not absolutely the fastest team. So I wouldn't say Binotto was the complete opposite, with last year. I'm sure the car, and they were happy with it, and they weren't expecting Mercedes to completely spank them in Melbourne like they did last year, but it's not massively different from what he was saying last year. I think he was, again, there was a couple of days of testing last year where he was saying, yeah, car looks good, but Mercedes are still yet to show, their full potential. So, yeah. Not great sounding quotes. Ferrari are throwing false claims out. Who knows if they are? I hope they are. This is the thing. I'm not like, yes, get in, Ferrari are going to be shit this season. I hope Ferrari are right up there like they were in 2018, for example, if not even stronger, because I want a, final race title decider. But, that's what he said, and you can interpret it any way you want. But I don't think Binotto is as similar as Toto Wolff in trolling people and making out they're a lot worse than they actually are. I mean, they're not going to be horrible. I mean, let's say that, yeah, definitely they're way slower than Mercedes and Red Bull. Even if that's the case, they're not going to be as bad as maybe he makes out. But, again, I think as he said, they haven't really gone for a proper-ish lap time yet, so we can't really say how the Ferrari is looking. But, that's what he said. And, again, you can interpret it in any way you want. Knowing Ferrari, they probably threw it away. Well, we did, by the way, also hear rumours during January that Ferrari's engineers were not happy with the simulations, as Valtteri Bottas Lewis Hamilton, is about to come out on a set of C4 compound tyres. So here we go. Not as soft as the compound used by Bottas this morning, but might see a very quick lap time. And remember, Lewis Hamilton last year, with the same compound of tyre, did a 1 minute 16.1 in qualifying. So, if he does another lap time like that, then that'd be a good first run. But who knows the amount of fuel he's running. But, we heard rumours that Ferrari's engineers were not happy with the simulations of the car's, aero in the wind tunnel. So this is not a new thing in terms of concern. But again, too early to say where exactly they are or whereabouts they are. Need to wait until they start pushing, which by the sounds of it will be next week. And I think it definitely looks as though Mercedes and Red Bull are pushing harder now on day 3 or the end of the first test than Ferrari are. And I think it's because, as he said, they're trying to understand the balance of the car. So, yeah. Obito, here we go for a boring season. 1-2 Mercedes. Well, actually, and they're just showing on the screen that the DAS system on the Mercedes will be banned for 2021. We already know that. What was I going to say? If the racing point is the 2019 Mercedes resprayed, then it will be a different season. Because not only will it be a 1-2, it'll be a 1-2-3-4 for Mercedes-Benz in 2020. So there will be difference, for sure. Again, if Racing Point are using a resprayed 2019 Merc. So there will be a difference, I guess. As Hamilton now pounds down to turn 5. Hiran Rudd, any updates on Norris? Are they having a problem or something? Yeah, he is down in 16th place. Let me just take a look at their Twitter account to see if they're saying what the problem is. No, nothing so far. They'll probably say what it was once they get back out on track, because Hamilton, smoking from the rear of his car there, Don't know if that's a bit of an oil overfill or what, but that didn't look good. Never looks good when smoke is pouring out the back of your car. Briefly. As he now comes around the final corner, and this will be his first lap time. Don't know what it'll be. Will it be a good lap time? Oh no. Oh no, he has gone up to 8th place, but goes on to another lap. So Lewis Hamilton is up to 8th on the C4 compound, but yeah, obviously he can go faster than that on that compound. And they failed on the FOM timing thing to actually calculate his time, so I can't tell you what lap time it was. It was either a 1:07, I think it was a late 1 minute 17, and yeah, just I think a bit of oil just coming out of the car on the exit of turn 10. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton did a 1 minute 18.1, I think it was. Yeah, 1:18.198 on the C4 soft compound. So yeah, definitely running conservatively on that lap. So Lewis Hamilton is in 8th place. 9th, Carlos Sainz. Sebastian Vettel, by the way, for any Ferrari fans, has just pitted after a... And here we go. Comes down to turn 10. What happens? Lock up on the inside front and goes massively wide. And I was about to say, actually, with Ferrari, talking about possible issues for them, is I noticed last watch-along, yesterday when I did the day 2 afternoon session, that Ferrari still in the slow speed corners have that terminal understeer that plagued them last season. Again, they're not running at absolute high speed, but I think from the onboard cameras, even when they've got a ton of fuel on board, you can still tell what the balance of the car is like. And to me, the front end still is not biting or, getting into the corner as well as it should do, which was the main problem of the 2019 Ferrari. The rear end of the car was fine, engine was fine, but the front end just wouldn't get into the corners anything like the Mercedes would. The Mercedes could practically put their car on the apex curb. The Ferrari couldn't get anywhere near it. And yesterday, I saw similarities to that in the turn 5 and turn 10 corners, two very slow corners. Vettel is 11th, and then we've got Gasly up in 12th. And then Daniel Ricciardo is in 13th place. As every time he exits turn 10, there is oil pouring out of Hamilton's car. I don't know if it's just over a bump that it's doing that, but there you go. And then, Latifi is 14th. And then 15th, Magnussen, who... Well, his car was crashed, and here goes Hamilton to the line. Doesn't improve his time. Stays in 8th place. Magnussen 15th, of course. Car back in the pits after spinning. He won't be out probably for another hour and a half, I think. At least. And then Lando Norris is currently 16th and last. No idea why he's not on track, but he is 16th. And again, exit of turn 10. Bit of oil coming out. I think it's oil. I'll hope it is. But yeah, there you go. Right. Let me see if I can find another picture here. You know what? Yeah. Let me get this picture up for you guys. As we've talked about Ferrari for, quite a few minutes. Let me get a picture of Sebastian Vettel on screen from a few moments ago. So, and let me just adjust it, obviously. And then I'll come back to you guys in the chat, because on track, nothing's really dramatically happening. We've got Albon, Giovinazzi, Hamilton, and Gasly on circuit, but none of them are going particularly quickly. Right. There you go. There is Seb. In the, all Ferraris look beautiful, don't they? I was going to say the beautiful Ferrari, but again, they all look beautiful. But let's have a look to see what you guys are saying. Why did DAS or DAS get banned from 2021, by the way? It was legal this year. Why not 2021? Asks Reza. I don't actually know why. But, yeah. Someone's saying that I need to put Albon in 7th. Yes, I do indeed. Where is Albon on the... Oh, no. I've just seen... Sorry, I've put Carlos Sainz twice. Thanks for reminding me. So yeah, sorry. Sainz is not 7th and 9th at the same time. That would be quite an achievement. It is Alexander Albon in 7th place in the Red Bull. There you go. Thanks for letting me know that. Chris Wharton. Jules Elbers. How does the Red Bull do in the corners compared to the Mercedes and Ferraris? Well, I will say, again, we don't know the speed of the cars, but the most comfortable looking car to drive from the onboard cameras has looked the Red Bull. The Mercedes doesn't look bad or anything. The only thing I've noticed with the Mercedes is it does have slow speed exit corner oversteer. You know what I mean by that? Again, the exit out of a slow corner, there's a bit of oversteer there, especially at the final chicane. And then the Ferrari, from what we can see so far, still has quite bad understeer in the slower corners. The Red Bull on the front end is not great, but it's not bad or okay. It's probably, I say, good on the front end. And the rear end especially, though, is extremely stable. Not stepping out at all. So, from what I've seen of the onboard cameras so far, the Red Bull has looked probably the best. But that doesn't necessarily mean they are going to be the quickest. Because I'm still sure Mercedes are very... even if Red Bull are quick, I'm sure Mercedes are very quick as well. And Ferrari, of course, will feature strongly in there somewhere as well. As Antonio Giovinazzi, who's in 6th, is on a race run on the C2 compound still. And as we're watching on board, if you're watching the session with me, watching along, of course, then you'll kind of see what I meant by earlier with the Alfa Romeo. If you look at the turn in, you know, the front end of the rear end, again, it's not getting away from them, but it's extremely ponderous. It's not really getting into the corner with the front end, and the rear end doesn't come around as quickly as other cars, which is similar to last year. Again, it's not a bad-looking car, but it's nothing really that great-looking. It just looks okay at best, this Alpha. And there you can see quite bad understeer in turn 12. Bit of rear instability there into 13. But yeah, the Alfa Romeo, again, just looks very ponderous, very... The front and rear, if you know what I mean, it looks slow to kind of whip round the corner as quickly as, again, other cars out there. I mean, of course, they are running heavier fuel now, but I noticed it when Raikkonen did his lower fuel run at the end of yesterday, that it is a very ponderous car aerodynamically, which is, again, similar to last year. But of course, they did not end last year good at all. Only had one really good Grand Prix in the final 9 races, which of course was Brazil. Ducks Drive, Ferrari needs to be dominating. I don't think it needs to be dominating. I think, obviously, Ferrari, they're around... And Lando Norris, by the way, is now on track on the C1 compound. So that'll just be an installation run, I guess. Norris as he does a practice start. But, with Ferrari, they don't need to be dominating. Of course, they are built to win. That's what Ferrari are for. But what I would expect from Ferrari is at least them to put up a challenge for a world championship. It doesn't mean they have to win it, but at least compete for it. That is all I ask for Ferrari, at the very least. If they can't compete for it, then they're not doing well enough. And it's not a good enough season. Simple as. And Ferrari don't have an excuse. They have so much resources, money. Maybe not as much money as Mercedes, but, you know, this is Ferrari. They're a great team. They've won so many championships. So many great drivers, all that. As Norris kicking the rear out on his installation lap. Yeah. I don't think it should be dominating, but at least compete for the championship until the end of the season is what I would expect at the very least from Ferrari. And the same, I think, goes for Mercedes as well at the moment. Ducks Drive. Vettel has to win the title this year. He won't. He won't. If Sebastian Vettel wins the championship, he'll need to have the best car. I mean, yeah, people out there will say, oh, 2012. But if you look at the end of that season, the reason he made such a great comeback was because the Red Bull was the best car for the final 5-6 races that season. So, yeah. If Vettel's going to win the championship, he needs to have the best car. And the chances are that, as Norris, by the way, that wasn't an installation lap. He's now pounding around on track on the C1. Yeah, chances are Ferrari are not going to have the best car this season. Again, I could be wrong, but they have a lot of time, Ferrari, to make up. I mean, if you look at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, for example, they were, what, 3/4 of a second off or half a second off in qualifying, and then a second a lap off Lewis Hamilton's pace with Leclerc in the race. So, yeah, they got a lot of time to make up, Ferrari. A lot of time to make up. And I don't think they will make it up to be the fastest in Formula 1. I mean, I think they could probably close the gap a bit, but not have the best car still. As Norris is going to set a time here, I think. But it won't be very quick. Probably will stay in 16th or 15th place. And no, he'll stay in 16th place because this is a very slow lap time from Lando. Lab Gorilla Max will give Hamilton, yeah, Norris has a 23.5. Stays in 16th place. Lab Gorilla Max will give Hamilton trouble this year. Ferrari might pick up a few wins when those two crash. I think, yeah, if Lewis and Max compete so hard, I think it's inevitable they will have a crash if they're racing so hard with each other. But I think, you know, if I stick to my pre-season prediction for the 2020 Formula 1 season, I think Ferrari will definitely win a race this season. I think it will happen. I think their car will, you know, be closer to Mercedes. I don't think it will be better, but it'll be closer. But I think they will win a race. I think they'll probably end up winning, say, 3 or 4 races this season. Say 2 for Vettel, 2 for Leclerc. But that won't be enough to win a championship. If you're going to win a championship, you need to win at least 8 races in a season, I think, to win the World Championship. And yeah, they won't be doing that. Right. Let's see if there's any other pictures or news on Twitter. And no, not at the moment. So I will wait. Actually, let me just see. Is there any more? No. No more news or pictures for the moment, as Lando Norris continues to pound round on the C1 tyre. Not going very quickly, for obvious reasons. Because he was late coming out, as we're now just over an hour into the afternoon session of the final day of the first pre-season test. As Norris continues round. But I'll come to you guys in the chat because the only thing I can do right now. Ducks Drive says, Ferrari has so far operated their engine in its low performance levels. Absolutely. I don't know if you're saying defect or deficit. I'm going to say defect. The defect is very surprising. Shortly before, Vettel had achieved the highest speed on a long straight, 329 kilometers an hour. Yep, I did see that. Maybe that's what broke it, and maybe that's what's concerning Ferrari, and that's maybe why they're not doing as many laps as Mercedes or Red Bull. Maybe. That could explain that. Maybe they know they have reliability issues. And then he goes on to say, This means there is power in the engine. They just need to sort out the downforce. Well, we know that there's definitely a lot of power in that Ferrari power unit. But as you say, the downforce was the issue last season. And if they don't get it sorted by Melbourne, even with the little tweaks to the cars they're going to make, then it's going to be rinse and repeat for Ferrari. And if they start the season off any slower than last year, and, let's say we get to Bahrain and they don't get pole, or they're definitely slower, then it is going to be a bad season. And I think really for the season, if that is a good indication, if you're a Ferrari fan, to look at how well Ferrari are going to do this season. Again, Bahrain historically is a very good track for Ferrari. It's one of the most successful tracks in the last, 16, 17 years. If they don't do well or well enough in Bahrain, then that is going to set the tone for what the pace of the car is going to be like for the rest of the season. So, for example, last year and the year before, they locked out the front row. Should have won in 2019. They did win in 2018, won in 2017 as well. If they, let's say, lock out the second row, but then are nowhere near the race victory on pure pace, then that probably is a sign, as Daniel Ricciardo is back out on track on the C2 compound. That's probably a sign that Ferrari are not in for a good season at all. Because again, if they can't do well at that track, which again, historically is a good track for them, then that is setting themselves up for a quite poor season. So I think for Ferrari, again, the best indication once the season for proper starts to see how quick they can be through the 21 races, I think that Bahrain Grand Prix will give the indication as to whether fundamentally the Ferrari car for 2020 is good enough or not. And then, for example, Mercedes, if their car fundamentally is good enough, then it'll show for sure in Melbourne, where they are always super quick. And Red Bull, problem for Red Bull is, because now Shanghai's off the calendar for the moment because of the coronavirus, as Lewis Hamilton goes third on a 17.3 on, I think, the C4 compound, as Gasly now goes up to ninth. I'll update that in a moment. Because the Chinese Grand Prix is off the calendar, a race where historically Red Bull do well, the other tracks, Australia, Bahrain, historically not great Red Bull tracks, and then Vietnam and Zandvoort, who knows? So Red Bull, it's going to take quite a bit of time, probably till Spain and Monaco in the calendar, to know whether fundamentally the Red Bull car for this season is good enough. But with Mercedes and Ferrari, I think after the first two races, which are, of course, and thankfully, are back-to-back, you will then know, right, who fundamentally has the better car. But with Red Bull, again, we'll have to wait until, I think, the end of May to know fundamentally how quick the Red Bull car really is and how it, will do then for the rest of the season. But, right, so Lewis Hamilton up to third, 1.6 seconds exactly off his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton, I'm sure, running a bit more of a conservative program at the moment than his teammate. So Bottas, Ocon, Hamilton, and then Stroll in fourth. Fifth is Daniel Kvyat in the AlphaTauri. And then Max Verstappen is in sixth, as Giovinazzi is the man we're seeing on the screen right now, continuing his race runs that he's been doing for, an hour and 10 minutes now. So good run for Antonio in terms of reliability. Verstappen in sixth place, and then Giovinazzi in seventh. Eighth, then Alexander Albon. I would like to see, though, what compound Hamilton was on for that run. I mean, it doesn't matter massively, but I'd just like to know, just so I can know, more so of what I think program he is running. Albon 8th, Gasly 9th, and then Carlos Sainz is down to 10th. Of course, not in the car anymore. Lando Norris is in the car this afternoon, as doing some work to the Red Bull around the engine or engine cover. And Albon, I think, is getting back in the car. So they've just finished some work on it. But, yeah, Carlos Sainz in 10th. And then 11th is Romain Grosjean, who, of course, not in the car anymore. It's Magnussen for the afternoon, but the Haas is currently being repaired. Not because of Grosjean, because of Magnussen. Or not Magnussen, but, you know, because of the puncture. And then Vettel is P12. Daniel Ricciardo is P13. And then, yeah, Latifi, Magnussen, Norris. So there you go. There's your top 16 for testing on day 3. Right, let's look at the comments to see what you guys are saying. And actually, let me look at Twitter. See if I can get a picture. If I can. No, not yet. But I have got another quote from Matteo Binotto. And again, it's from Tammy, Vettel Leclerc on Twitter. Ferrari are looking into that Mercedes DAS system in their factory. Binotto has, quote, said, "We need to understand it in detail. What does it do? What advantages does it give?" And then it was asked, how long would it take for Ferrari to copy the system? And then said, surely until the middle of the season, which I think is what we said yesterday. Because you need to, again, as he said, find out what it does, build it, test it, run it. That's going to take at least half a season to do that. So yeah, there you go. Plenty of quotes from the Ferrari team boss. Jules Albers, why can teams only use one car in testing? Does anyone know? I think they do it from a cost standpoint because they don't need... I mean, again, because they split sometimes the days in terms of who drives in the morning and afternoon, or then some days you get one driver driving. I think it's cost is why they only run one car, and I think it's a good thing they run one car because it's not necessary to run 2 cars. And I don't think it really makes a difference as Lewis Hamilton improves again to 1 minute 17.1. He's only 9 thousandths slower than Ocon for the moment. And yeah, like, there's nothing really to gain from running 2 cars. Because if your car's bad, it's bad. It doesn't matter if you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4 versions of the car, you know, running at the same time. If your car's not good enough, it's not good enough. Doesn't matter how many, again, cars you got out there. And they'll know from just the one car running whether it's good or not. As Ricciardo, to me, looks like he's on a race run on the C2 compound of tyre. And on board, let's look at the Renault. I haven't seen a lot of on board of the Renault. Front end going in nicely there. Rear end fine. Let's see what the rear end is, though. In these next 2 corners. Looks fine. Again, there's nothing great, I would say, about the Renault. Looking from on board. Looks very comfortable to drive. Looks better on board than the Alfa Romeo did. And yeah, the front nose looking good. Into the slower speed corners. Rear end not stepping out at all. But yeah, nothing to shout about. But it does look better on board than the Alfa Romeo did. In terms of the handling. So I guess that's something. But who knows whether that'll equate to faster lap times as he comes across the line to the 122 or 124. I think that was... No, 123.8 for Daniel Ricciardo on his race run. Super Kev says, not really giving up but playing down their chances. Ferrari are more used to hyping up their cars. Ewok, who must be trolling when he says this. I'm very excited about Binotto. He is a fantastic leader. His words are an inspiration to the Scuderia fans. I hope you're not serious, because if you are, then you're setting yourself up for a gigantic, Titanic-sized disappointment in 2020. Dux Drive says Ferrari last year were flying in the test while Mercedes struggled. Come Australia, and Mercedes put in a dominant win, put a new record of 8 wins in a row. Well, talking of Ferrari, here comes Sebastian Vettel. On, I think, a race simulation. He's on the medium compound tyres. And, yeah, looks like he's on a race run at the moment. And I wish we could go on board, because the more on board you get to see the cars, then you just get to understand more so of what the car and, the handling of the car is like. So hopefully they'll cut on board soon enough to Sebastian Vettel as he goes through turn 5. The real question is this, says Ben Farrell, or asks, I guess, will Sebastian Vettel beat himself or the competition more frequently? That is a good question. I'm not sure how to answer it, to be honest. I think a bit of both, to be honest. He tends to... Again, there's been plenty of times in the last 2 or 3 years where he's had what he's needed to go and get the result that he needed, but then beat himself, I guess. As a bit of oversteer on exit of the final chicane there for Vettel. But yeah, I guess beat himself, maybe slightly more so, but kind of a bit of both. What's wrong with Binotto? I don't mind him. As a person, I'm sure he's fine. And, a good guy. But that doesn't matter when it comes to results. And, well, if you look at last season, he took Ferrari backwards in almost every area, except straight line speed. The management of the drivers last year was worse than it was for Arriva Bene with Vettel and Raikkonen. Yeah, it was going to be a bit more tense, but still, he could have done a lot better. Aerodynamics was poor, tyre wear was poor, race pace was poor, strategy was even worse. The just performance of the team at the track was worse. And yeah, I think that's got to be really the biggest criticism of Binotto from last year. And if he's going to keep that job, he has to show progression for the, for the team. If Ferrari are worse than last year, which would be quite an achievement, then then he's clearly not good enough. Again, I am willing to give him a second year, but it's got to be this year better than last year. Has to be. Doesn't have to be a championship winning year necessarily for it to be a better year, but just a better year. Quicker than they were compared to Mercedes. Better race pace, better tyre wear, not as many strategy mistakes, you know what I mean? If they can have that, then I think Binotto's done good enough for 2020. And then hopefully Ferrari can go again in the post-2021 world. But yeah, not quite feeling Binotto as a team principal, if I'm honest. Right. Let's look at some other comments here if I can. Ferrari is sandbagging. Yeah, they are. Mercedes and Red Bull are, but Ferrari, as I've said, I think are sandbagging the most. But when the team boss comes out and says, Mercedes and Red Bull are faster, it definitely gets your eyebrows raised, if you know what I mean. Again, that might not be the case. Again, too early to tell who the quickest team out the top 3 is, and way too early to tell what the actual top 3 pecking order is. But, yeah, not sounding or looking great for Ferrari so far in testing. Haven't done as much running as they would have wanted to. Car on board doesn't look improved to me so far. Again, though, need to see even more of the Ferrari as testing goes on. And then you have those quotes from Binotto saying they're not as quick. Yeah, not a great first test for Ferrari, but I wouldn't say it's been a bad first test because, again, well, we have no idea how quick they really are. Talking of Ferrari, Vettel on the C3 medium compound is about to do a practice start at the end of the pit lane, and he does it. I just wanted, though, to read a quote from Lando Norris on Twitter. I saw this earlier, and by the way, Gunther Steiner has said that Haas will not be running again this afternoon. Well, that's a shame, because that's going to cost them what? Oh, another 2 hours and 40 minutes to go, so that's not good for Haas F1. So they're going to lose 3.5 hours of afternoon running. That is not good at all for Haas F1. That's a shame. Right. Let's find this quote I was talking about. So, Lando Norris was asked, I guess, about the whole, Racing Point. Is it a Mercedes car in pink type of thing? And he said, we are McLaren. We shouldn't have to rely on copying other people. We should be able to invent things ourselves, come up with our own leading ideas. And I think that's what McLaren are capable of. Bang on the money, I think. McLaren, yeah, they should be a team that should be capable of coming up with their own, new, cool, funky innovations that can make the car quicker. And they are McLaren. They don't have to rely on technical partnerships like other teams do. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with what Racing Point have done or what Haas have done or Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri. Nothing wrong with it at all. But McLaren, don't need to be relying upon such a relationship. And yeah, if Racing Point, Haas, Alfa Romeo, and AlphaTauri want to do that, then let them do it. Because still, the top 5 ahead of them, and maybe to a certain degree, Williams, who are still massively underperforming, in my opinion, should still be beating them. As Vettel, I think, is coming back in. Yeah, he's coming back into the pits, into his pit garage. Right, no more new pictures I can find at the moment. Let's see if I can find any other comments from you guys. Ben Farrell says, Matteo Binotto, even for a first-year team principal, was not very good at all. I think he'll be sacked in a few years if 2020 goes the same or worse than last year. As I said earlier, though, because 2021's around the corner, it'd be very harsh to hire a new team principal. And then if 2021 doesn't go well, you can't then blame the team principal. But of course, the team principal will have to take some kind of blame because they always do, even if it's not their problem. Look at Riva Bene. He was not the problem at Ferrari. And he was the one who got sacked. When, Vettel, Binotto, Rueda, not saying he should have been sacked, but they were more of a cause of the problem in 2018 and 2017 than he was. And Riva Bene was the one who went. So, just shows you that even if you aren't the cause of the problem, if you're the team boss, the one who is leading the team, that you'll still get flack for poor results, even if you don't deserve it. So, I think the smart thing to do would be to give Binotto this year and next year, and then, if he still isn't good enough, then go and get someone new. That would be the smart thing to do. But this is Ferrari. They don't do smart things. As Daniel Ricciardo is out on track. And is Lando Norris pitting? I think he is. Yeah, he is. Lando Norris is in the pits. So the only car on circuit at the moment is Daniel Ricciardo, who's doing a race run with about 2.5 hours to go of the first test. And, well, it's been an interesting first test. We still have mostly no idea what the pecking order is. I think we know that Racing Point and Williams are quite a bit faster than last year. We know that Renault are not quite reliable. Ferrari also, reliability not quite there yet. And for everyone else, in terms of speed, other than Racing Point and Williams, yeah, we don't know. We need to wait and see in the second test, or maybe for the final 2.5 hours of day number 3. As Lance Stroll, for the first time I think today, or in a while, comes out on track on the C2 compound, so that looks as though it's going to be a race run for Stroll. Right, let's look at some other comments here. Ewok says Ferrari are a well-oiled machine. Some would say over-oiled. Right. Let's look at some other comments in the chat that's I can see here. Is Verstappen going around? No, Verstappen did the morning session, and Albon is in the car this afternoon, but he's not out on track at the moment because I think there's some kind of, maybe not issue, but they're working on something in the Red Bull pits. The only cars on track right now are Hamilton, Stroll, and Ricciardo. Hamilton and Stroll on an outlap. Ricciardo is, just continuing around on his race simulation, which, of course, is very important for Renault that they keep doing these laps because they didn't even hit 100 laps yesterday. And I think they were the only team, maybe except Williams, not to. So, yeah, Renault have got to get the laps in more so than, work out what the race pace is like. As Stroll now starts his race simulation on the C2 compound, and he'll probably be out on track for another hour before he comes in again. Ducks Drive. What puzzles me is that Binotto said they would have two different versions of cars during the test. I can't remember if he did say that, but I know there was big rumours about that Ferrari were going to do a Mercedes and bring two cars. Like a basic version, and then a Melbourne version, as Lewis Hamilton is currently improving on his lap on the C3 compound. Let's see what his middle sector time is like. It's 7/10 down on Bottas, but it is a green middle sector. Front end went in nicely. Bit of rear end oversteer on exit of the slow corner, but as I've said, that's the only issue I've seen with Mercedes so far during testing. And the rear end definitely moves around a bit. I think more so, though, the reason, and Hamilton goes up to second on a 17 flat, so that is they're still running miles away from the pace they can absolutely do, so there's no point even talking about that lap time. What was I going to say? Lewis Hamilton, I think the reason Hamilton was, so dominant last year, Valtteri Bottas was very good as well, but Lewis Hamilton does like to drive cars that are more oversteery. So I think that's the reason why you do see oversteer a lot more in the Mercedes than understeer, because he does like to drive the car around with a loose rear end. So I think, if they're still the quickest, but they've got those oversteer, kind of issues, I don't think it's necessarily then just an issue. It's just a setup choice. As Ricciardo continues round. So let me update the order. So it is a Mercedes 1-2 now. Bottas from Hamilton. Hamilton, though, not pushing as hard as Bottas was this morning. Again, Bottas, C5 compound, the softest compound, in a 1 minute 15.7. Which is quick, but I reckon is still probably how much lap time away from what they could do. If he had the lowest fuel, Valtteri, and the highest engine mode used during that lap when on the C5 compound, I reckon he probably could have done probably a low 1 minute 14. Again, if he was pushing absolutely as hard as possible with the car and himself. Again, just shows you how Mercedes, that's a quick time so far for testing. And it's only 3/10 off his own pole from last year, but a lot more pace to come. A lot more pace to come from Mercedes. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. Right. Let's see if I can get another picture on screen. And no, I can't find one. There's a lack of pictures, honestly, on Twitter at the moment. I'm going to try and go to one of the team's Twitter accounts and just pick one up from there, because this is getting annoying. No. I'm going to try and get a Racing Point one, but can't. Let me see if I can get an Alfa Romeo on the screen. Nope. Again, annoying. A real lack of pictures at the moment, which is, again, really annoying. What are the cars? So, we've, by the way, seen Pierre Gasly on track, who has come out, and it looks as though he's on the C2 compound, so I think he is now on a race simulation. Right, here we go. He's not on track, but this is a picture of the Williams car from earlier on. So let me just get on screen and adjust it for you guys. Again, they're not on track at the moment, still sorting out whatever reliability issue they had this morning. And let me just adjust it so you guys can see. And there you go. Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. And Williams, well, today not as good of a day. Again, reliability issue. Lap time not as quick as it could have been. Or it was, earlier in the test. But Williams have had a much better preseason testing program than they did this time last year. And that's all that matters for Williams. Right, let's look at some other comments in the chat here if we can. Jay Crail says, to be fair, they still end up second place despite failing most of the time. This is the thing, though, is, 2017 and 2018, they compete for the World Championship, of course, finishing second place, but that is at least what Ferrari should be doing. Again, at least. Doesn't mean they should be finishing second, but that's at least what they should be doing per season. The reason last season I was so critical of Ferrari and I thought they were so poor compared to what they should be doing was because, yeah, they were second, but they were so far away from the championship that it was embarrassing. They ended up, look at the amount of points away they were. They were what? Almost 300 points away in the Constructors. And if Red Bull had, say, Carlos Sainz or a good, consistent driver alongside Max Verstappen last year, I think Red Bull would have finished in second. And they deserved to, I think, Red Bull. I thought they had a better season than Ferrari. In terms of the car, the way the team operated, Verstappen. The only problem was, again, the number 2 driver and all the stuff that was going on with that. But yeah, the reason last year was so poor was not only, they were second in the championship, but they weren't competing for the championship. They were, their championship challenge was over after 4 races. After that Baku race, it was over because they'd lost 4 races in a row. Mercedes had 4 1-2s in a row. And Ferrari bottled 2 out of the first 4 races. Bahrain and Baku races, they could have took points away from Mercedes and even won. So that's why last year was so poor, because it was over so quickly in terms of what their aim was. Anyone else feel the need to brush their teeth? It does still look like a toothpaste commercial, but it's a better looking livery than it was last year, and I'm actually starting to grow towards it a bit as Lando Norris comes out on track again on the C1 compound of tyre. Jay Krell says Mercedes still the team to beat. Again, we don't know yet whether they are, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if we turned up to Melbourne and they were on the front row. It wouldn't be a surprise, would it? And you know what? I'm going to post another picture, and this time it's of Lance Stroll in the much improved Racing Point RP20 car. And let me just adjust it so you guys can see it better with the graphics. And here we go. Oh God, that was not what I wanted to do. And there you go. There is the Racing Point. And yeah, whether it's a pink Mercedes or not, it's bloody quick. And it is going to be very quick in 2020. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. They should have just called it the W10.5. Well, this is the thing. Let's say it is literally the same car, but, you know, painted, you know, in pink. Then it is probably not the start of last season's car. It is probably the one that was used in Abu Dhabi, which would have been quite a bit faster than the one used at the same track in testing, of course, and at the Spanish Grand Prix at the same track. So, again, I think Racing Point, I don't think it is, by the way. I don't think it is the same car. I mean, maybe, yeah, some parts of it are the same, but I think definitely it is a Racing Point. I don't think it's a full-on customer car, even though I don't have problems with customer cars. I think, honestly, that would have been, if they didn't have this whole budget cap coming for 2021 to try and close the field up, I think that is one way to get around the gap between the top and the midfield, is to just have customer cars for the bottom 5 teams. And of course, if they are customers, not manufacturers or big, you know, teams, then I think that is a way to get around closing the field, is to just give, you know, the other teams, you know, Racing Point, Williams, Haas, Alpha, and AlphaTauri, just give them customer cars. And that'll solve the issue. I mean, yeah, Haas and Alfa Romeo will then have the same car, but they'll not get the same performance out of it, will they? Because certain drivers are quicker than others. You know, it'll be different. So that is one way to get around solving the gap between the top and the midfield. McLaren and Renault obviously don't need a customer car, and they should be doing a lot better still. But, you know, those lower midfield teams, I see no problem if, you know, they want to use a full-on customer car. And I actually like the concept of customer cars. And I think actually, when they were around in 2007, 2008, I thought they were actually pretty good. They allowed certain teams who maybe financially couldn't compete to actually compete. For example, Super Aguri in 2007. They were pretty quick that year, considering what they were like the year before and the year after when they went bust. But because they got to use the Honda of the year before that was so quick compared to the Honda of 2007, they were able to compete. And Toro Rosso also, I think in 2006, 2006 they used the Red Bull 2005, then I think 2007 they may have used the 06 Red Bull. And again, it brought those teams more so into play when they wouldn't be. So I have no problem with customer cars. I actually am for customer cars, but only for customer teams, not for, you know, your big manufacturers or big teams. As Antonio Giovinazzi continues on his race run. Ewok says, love those booster rockets on the overhead air intake. Yeah, they do look good. And those are just, I think, just little fins on the sides of the airbox, which I think Ferrari have got as well. J. Crowell, unpopular opinion. I'm not liking that duck build nose design. I wish they'd come up with something that looks good. Well, it worked for Mercedes, and it doesn't really matter if it looks good or not. As long as it's quick, then it doesn't matter how it looks. I mean, for example, in 2014, if that Lotus nose cone, you know, meant they were quick, then so what? I mean, yeah, it didn't look good. It was ugly as fuck. But if it meant they were quick, then no problem. So, I mean, yeah, the looks of the car, it's nice to, you know, like certain cars in terms of their looks than others. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. I mean, I don't like the AlphaTauri livery, but I don't care, to be honest, that much. I will say I don't like the livery, and I don't like the colour scheme, but ain't going to make a difference to my opinion on them for 2020 if they do well or not in the Constructors. And I hope, again, they have another good season. And I think they are still, from testing so far, definitely, again, one of the teams that are holding back a bit more than other midfield teams. Ewok says, it's a brilliant idea, Chazza. Smaller teams using old cars. Again, it's, I think, a simpler way of getting around the whole smaller customer teams can't compete thing. The budget cap, it can work, but it will be harder for it to work than, again, customer cars for smaller teams. So, yeah. I mean, I hope the budget cap works, but I think it's really a wait and see with the budget cap as to whether it will work or not. I don't think we can say whether it will or not, because we need to wait really until, I'd say, 2023 to get a real good idea as to whether it's worked or not. Because obviously the budget cap doesn't start till New Year, obviously for 2021. So all of this year, all the big teams can spend as much as they want, really, on the 2021 cars. So I don't think the pecking order is going to be massively different next year, but I think once the budget cap, of course, is then enforced from 2021 on, then if the regulations stay the same, say until 2025, then by the time we get year on year on year with the same cars, the field should, in theory, close up, and that is the idea. But we'll have to, wait and see. And just looking back at the screen, nothing really going on. Albon's on track on a race run, so's Gasly, so's Giovinazzi. Ricciardo has come back out on track on an outlap, but I don't know if it's going to be a quick lap or not, or he's just going to do a another race run, as Albon sets a good first sector, only caught up a second down on Bottas, but then backs off quite a bit, and that was very noticeable. If he's trying to fool anyone, well, he didn't fool anyone. He backed off quite a lot in the exit of turn 4, and yeah, he's backed off massively after that. Improved first sector. Super Kev, it might be the last pink livery on the grid when their planned change to Aston colours happens. Yeah, that is indeed the case. Might be the last time we see a pink F1 car. I don't think we'll never see it again, a pink F1 car, but this team obviously going to be green and something. Maybe green and pink, who knows, but probably green predominantly in 2021. And that is a good thing, by the way, that Aston Martin are now a Formula 1 team. I wouldn't say Aston Martin is now necessarily a manufacturer like a Mercedes or a Ferrari in terms of similar stature, but it definitely puts Racing Point financially in a much, much stronger position going forward. And that's why Racing Point, I think, in this decade are a team to really look out for. Because they're always that team, Racing Point, that, they've done so well with such little cash. They're one of those teams that if they're kind of a what if they were given more cash to work with, then, they would probably be even better than how well they have done in the previous 10 years. So I really hope that they can continue using the money well like they do, because then post-2021, they might be one of the top 4 or 5 teams on a consistent basis, as Aston Martin, of course. As Albon is now pushing a bit harder on this lap. And doesn't improve his middle sector, though. But he might improve his lap time. Not by anything massive, but he might improve the lap time slightly. Runs slightly wide at turn 13, though. And car looks nice and comfortable through the final chicane. And comes to the line, and yep, he won't improve on this lap time. Does an 18.9 or 18.8? 18.6. He does. In the Red Bull on the C2. So not a race run for Albon, but definitely running a bit more fuel on board than, say, Valtteri Bottas was earlier on. As here is Lewis Hamilton on the C3 medium compound tyre, and he's on an out lap, so maybe we'll get to see a bit of an improvement on lap time here as he slowly coasts towards turn 10 with an Alfa Romeo behind him who overtakes him, and I think a Renault behind him as well. And does he let the Renault through? Is it the Renault? Yeah, it's the Renault, and he lets it through. As Hamilton cruising around, repairing the tyres. And yeah, hopefully he goes for a bit of a aggressive-ish run. Oh no, just goes straight to the last corner, so I'm assuming he's going to come back into the pits. Yeah, he does. So just, I don't know, a systems check. On the Mercedes there, Ben Farrell says, my worry with Aston Martin is that Lawrence Stroll is using the company for the sole purpose of getting his son an F1 ride. I personally believe it will result in a legal mess at the corporate level. Yeah, well, it's definitely a part of it, isn't it? I don't think it's everything of what his motivation is within Formula One, but it's definitely a factor. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But even if, let's say, it is his sole focus or purpose, look at the amount of good he's done for Racing Point. Saved the team, injected a load more cash into the team, now gotten partnered up with Aston Martin, and now the Aston Martin F1 team. They're going to build a new factory. He's done wonders for the team, and I think he should be really applauded. He's got a lot of criticism in the past for nothing really. And yeah, he's done such good things for the Racing Point team, so I think he should get a lot of credit for what he's done. As Hamilton now back in the garage. Let's look at some other comments if I can. Why is Max not driving? Because obviously they want to split the duties of testing. So Max, of course, did all of day 1. Albon did all of day 2. And then obviously they're going to split it for day 3. So everyone gets equal amount of running. That's true equality right there. As Gasly is on a race run, as we're now seeing his off-board. And just seeing go around turn 3 into turn 4. And yeah, car looks, as I've said before, AlphaTauri car looking comfortable to drive. Not stunning, but similar to last year. It's definitely a good, well-balanced racing car, which normally it is when it was Toro Rosso. Always been aerodynamically stronger than it has been in a straight line. With Honda continuing to make progress, then this team, not just Red Bull, but this team as well, will reap the benefits of that. As he comes into the final sector. Right, let's go to the Twitter. And no new pictures at the moment. And no new news. It says here Ferrari apparently are going to seek a clarification from the FIA on the DAS system. But they say it will not challenge its decision. So they just want to know, I guess, yeah, the clarification, you know, what you absolutely can and cannot do if you're going to implement that system. Because obviously they're going to try and do it by the sounds of it. But only, of course, if it has enough of an advantage. As the most amount of laps today, no surprise really, because he's been out on track basically the entire time since day 3. The day 3 afternoon session began. But Antonio Giovinazzi has done the most laps of any driver today, 112, and we've got just over 2 hours to go. So he might. If he keeps going, he might get over 200 laps in, which would be very good for only the 3rd day of testing. As Albon continues on his race run. He's done 21 laps today. And starts I think that's now 22, and now he's on lap 22. Right, let me come to the chat because that's all I can do right now. Because on screen, well, there's nothing really going on. Again, everyone is doing a race run. Albon, Gasly, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Ricciardo. Who knows? They might win this season. Don't know who you're talking about. If it's Ferrari, then, well, we'll see. Let me look at some other comments here if I can that I've missed. Sure, I've missed some. Agent Smith. Well, Daddy bought his boy a Merc. Well, he does have a good relationship with Toto Wolff, does Lawrence Stroll. So it wouldn't have been hard if he, has secured that. Wouldn't have been hard to get it, would it? But once Lance looks good in a car, well, might be more so of the car being good than him, but we'll wait on that, as Albon is lapping in the late 1-minute 20s at the moment, which race pace wise is good. I think that's probably the best it is, just good. I wouldn't say very good or great, but it's at best a good race pace if he is running race fuel, 60 odd laps or 50 odd laps of fuel. Ben Farrell, Alfa Romeo Racing is basically Sauber rebranded, correct? Yeah, it's Sauber but called Alfa Romeo. That's all it is. And Racing Point will be the same next year. It is, in terms of the name, Aston Martin, but it's Racing Point. Just the name is Aston Martin. So yeah, as now we're seeing Giovinazzi again, who continues pounding around the track. Good reliability for Alfa so far today. 114 laps today. And I think that is the most for any team so far. Mercedes so far today have done about 90 laps. Renault so far today have done around about, I think Renault have done slightly more laps than Alfa Romeo, maybe like 3 or 4 more. So Renault, it looks like, have done the most laps for any team today, which is what they needed to do. Because again, the running from yesterday especially was not good enough. Didn't even get up to 100 laps when most other teams, almost all the teams, other teams did. Where is George Russell? Did he do the whole day yesterday? Yeah, he did. Did the whole day yesterday. And of course, now Latifi, by the way, is back out. Is he back out on track, or is it a replay of earlier? Oh, it's a replay of earlier. Just his problem. Yeah, Latifi's in the car today. Obviously, to equal out the amount of running both drivers are having. But Latifi had an engine problem in the morning session, so hasn't been out on track during the afternoon. And now we see the Renault and the Alpha Tauri. I'm hoping there's a team out there that can get out there and actually set somewhat of a lower fueled lap time, because I will admit it's not very interesting right now what's going on day 3. Ewok, Ferrari needs to start the hard work with the money that they get. Indeed. Mr. Random Guy, why do you think F1 seasons recently aren't as close as they were in 2007, 2008? The thing is, the raw pace of the cars from 2000, 2007, and 2008, it's about the same. Now, the reason you think it's closer is, and this was the problem with refueling, especially with the qualifying system we had, it's because you had to qualify if you started in the top 10. Because you had to qualify on the fuel load you intended to start the race with, that's why you would get, say, some midfield cars up there with the top cars, because those midfield cars would put less fuel in. The fast cars, the top cars put more fuel in. That's why you get some competition. So I don't think the cars actually that season were closer necessarily. Again, a lot of it was refueling, and the qualifying times that had to be done if you qualified in the top 10 on the fuel load you had to start the Grand Prix with. But also the turbo hybrids that we have in Formula 1 at the moment compared to the V8s back then also make for the difference, because back in 2007, 2008, there were differences between the engine power of we had Mercedes back then, Ferrari, BMW, Toyota, Honda. Anyone else? Cosworth, did we have? Can't remember. The difference in power back then was not as much as it is with the current engines in Formula 1. So, again, the two biggest I guess reasons for why there's differences is, again, fuel loads and the current power unit differences or engine differences that there are now compared to back then, where the engines were mostly kind of the same in terms of power. And I think, to be honest, I don't think we should bring back refueling, to be honest, because, I mean, it does have its pros, but probably more cons than pros. But if you took away the differences in power, and, you know, again, from the power units, let's say all the power units were the same in terms of power output. If you then look at the aerodynamic differences and the difference in pace just with the chassis of each car, Formula 1 would be a lot closer. But again, because of the differences of the power units and the power outputs, that's why you get certain teams a lot faster than others when they don't actually necessarily have that much more grip or any more grip than the team they're faster than. So, you know, that also is why certain top teams in the past 3 or 4 years have been much faster than the midfield, not just because the aero is better, but also because the power unit is so strong that they're able to pull out even more of a gap than we've seen in previous years, which is a shame. And that is and they had to really expect this when we went to the turbos in 2014, because the same thing happened in the 80s. When we brought in turbos in the 1980s, it just made for big lap time differences between the cars. When, if it's naturally aspirated, you tend to get closer fields. So, you know, that was something they surely knew was going to happen. So they had pre-warning. Right. And by the way, good question, Mr. Random Guy. That's a very good one. But yeah, it does come down to refueling and the naturally aspirated V8 engines of those days. That's the reason it was a lot closer back then compared to now. Other than that, there's no real differences, I don't think. As Stroll on a race run. As let's see if I can find another picture. And yes, I can. First picture of the day of an AlphaTauri going down the pit lane. Let me get it on screen. And yeah, it's rather big. So let me just adjust it for you guys a bit. As is Gasly on track? No, he's not. He's in the pits. So he's not out on track right now, but has been doing some race runs. And there he is in the AlphaTauri, which, again, on track, balance-wise, looks like a pretty good car. Right, I'll read out a couple more comments, and then we'll be in about a minute or so, we'll be halfway through the afternoon session, so I'll make sure to do a full update as to what's happened so far, not only in the afternoon, but in day 3 of testing, and the final day of the first test. So let's just read final comment, if I can. Let me find one. Martin Dashov, is there more for today? If you're talking about if anyone's going to go any faster, well, I don't know. And I will get onto that actually in a moment in terms of my own plans, because if they continue doing race runs for another 2 hours, then I probably will end the stream a bit earlier than planned, because I don't want to bore you guys, and I don't want to be bored myself. But I'll still be streaming at least for another hour. But if we get to, an hour to go, and it's still, they're, doing race runs, then I'm probably just going to end the stream a bit early, because, if it gets boring, then there's no point, staying on. But we are now halfway through the afternoon session of day 3. And, of course, 2 hours to go from the first Formula 1 pre-season test of 2020. So, what's happened so far today for all the teams? Well, let's start and let's go through all the teams. So, Mercedes' new innovative DAS system has been banned for 2021, but it won't be banned for 2020. I think that's basic confirmation that it is legal for 2020 only. So that's a good thing. And Valtteri Bottas has the fastest time of a 1:15.7 on C5 compound tyres, which is only, 0.3 of a second down on his pole position last year. But I reckon he can go another 1.5 seconds quicker than that. I reckon that's probably right up to the limit of what Mercedes at the moment can do with their car. Ferrari have not had a good day. Reliability issue in the morning. They've not really showed anything of anything remote to single lap or lower fuel running like Mercedes have so far today. And Matteo Binotto has come out and said that Mercedes and Red Bull are faster right now. Again, we don't know if that is going to be the case. It might not be. Ferrari could be, a couple tenths quicker than both of them. We'll have to see. The second test, and of course at the first Grand Prix, but not a good day for Ferrari so far. Red Bull, Red Bull clearly sandbagging, just like Ferrari. Definitely not running as aggressive with their program and just focusing on race simulations, I think, today. And then we drop in the midfield. McLaren, again, race simulation work going on at McLaren, which is why they are not that high up in the standings. I've just noticed, though, Norris has gone ahead of Kevin Magnussen, and he has also just pitted alongside Lewis Hamilton. But, McLaren doing some longer longer fuel running today, just like they did yesterday, and it is important they get that done. So they find a balance early on. And, Norris up to 15th and Magnussen down to 16th. And we'll get to Haas in a moment. Renault, in terms of their lower fuel running, not that impressive at all from what I've seen so far. But the good thing today is that they've got reliability so far today. And they're putting in, I think, the most amount of laps so far today out of any other team. So, looking good on the reliability front, pace front, or lower fuel running. Not necessarily low fuel running, but lower fuel running doesn't look that great at all for Renault. AlphaTauri still doing what they were doing in the previous couple of days. Mostly concentrating on the race simulations, finding a balance over a race fuel load. And I still think AlphaTauri are sandbagging quite a lot compared to most of their midfield rivals. So a lot more to come from them, with Kvyat and Gasly at the wheel of the AlphaTauri, of course, this year. Racing Point, still, they are the most improved midfield team. Clear to see from testing so far. And, clear to see today as well. Alfa Romeo, reliability's there, but other than that, can't say it's been a good test. I mean, the car on board doesn't look that great. And the lap times when they've done lower fuel running is not exactly that good. So, not a great day for Alpha. Again, reliability's there, which is good. But, again, lower fuel running, not that impressive at all. Haas F1 were doing well when it came to race runs. And then Kevin Magnussen suffered a puncture at the start of the afternoon session and went off at turn 8. And is out for the rest of the day. So the next time you see the Haas F1 car will be for day 4 of testing next Wednesday. And the last team is Williams, who still, their car looks much better than last year, of course. Much faster it is. But Slower today so far of the time they've done, but they had a reliability issue in the morning, which is why they're still not out on track. So, those are the teams, and that's what they've done so far today. As Antonio Giovinazzi finally comes into the pits after what was a mammoth run on the C2 hard compound tyre. But as I said a moment ago, I will give it another hour, but if this time in an hour's time it's still the race runs and there's not much going on, then I will probably end the stream early because yeah, I'm not going to stay on if it's not going to get any more interesting than this, as Vettel on track now on an outlap on medium compound tyres. And there you go. Let me see. Can I find another chat? Can I find another picture online of what is going on track? Nope. So I'll read the chat as Vettel, DRS open, medium tyres on. Is this going to be a bit of a lower fueled run from Ferrari? Let's see. As well, we can't see the timing at the moment, so we don't know if he's setting green sectors. I'd imagine not, because again, Ferrari have not tried at all to set any kind of lap time. But who knows what they're doing out there right now. Ewok, why ban it for 2021 but not for 2020? That is ridiculous from the FIA. I don't think it's ridiculous, and I think the reasoning is, we're heading into such a massive new set of regulations next year that there's no point, banning something now. They might as well just leave it because, these F1 cars are going to be so much different next year that it won't matter, really. And it's like, for example, I think the only other way I can explain this, I'll give an example of why they've done this, is if you guys remember Red Bull, at the end of 2013, and with their Renault V8, they had some sort of engine map system that they may not want to say it, as by the way, Vettel is not on a lower fueled run, I don't think. No, he's not. They might not want to say it was this, but it was basically traction control with their engine mapping system. Now, the reason they didn't ban it when I think they probably would have is because, a few months later was 2014 and the cars were massively different. So there was no real point, banning it. So, if, let's say next year the regulations were the same as 2020, then they would have probably banned it now because it would have an effect, going forward for a long time. But again, similar to that Red Bull thing, no real point, messing around with the regulations when they're going to be massively different next year anyway. So might as well just leave it. Because again, these cars are going to be so much different next year that we won't even recognize these cars anymore. Spider Monkey Chaz, Stroll versus Latifi, which one is better? I'd say Stroll. Some more quotes, by the way. Again, from the Twitter account of Tammy, or at Vettel Leclerc from Auto Motor und Sport, I think it is called. And it is. It's a quote from Red Bull about, how quick they are and what the reliability is like. So here we go. Red Bull ensures reliability in the first week. This is how you want to create the basis for the season. And then, an engineer for Red Bull says you can develop better with a stable platform. Until the season starts, Red Bull, unlike Ferrari, is going to bring updates. And then Red Bull then, in a following quote, admits, Mercedes is damn fast again, faster than us, but we don't see ourselves so far away. So there you go. Red Bull thinking that they're quicker than last year in terms of the pecking order, but not as fast as Mercedes. But again, who knows? They might be bluffing. And that's another thing that 8020 Irwin has said in the chat, which I think is a good point. With it being banned next year, now the other teams, won't invest in it. So there you go. I think Ferrari and Red Bull might do because they can afford to get it on the car probably by the summer break at the latest. But the midfield, again, as Gunther Steiner said yesterday, no midfield team can justify spending that money to research, develop, and run it. No midfield team can justify that spending. As Vettel continues on it's not a race runner's sorts, but it's not a lower fueled run. It's kind of in between. He's probably got about 30 laps of fuel on board, considering the lap times he's doing. And yeah, the speed track comparison. Vettel 329 kilometers an hour, Bottas 314, Hamilton 308. So that's a lot. Doesn't mean Ferrari are pushing harder though, because that's only one time that was clocked, not the entire time they're going past the speed traps. As Vettel is behind another car, I think. Don't know what car it is. Is it a Renault? I think it is. But there you go. What do you think of that, guys? Red Bull admitting that, well, in their opinion, Mercedes are faster. But according to them, they are closer than they were this time last year. What do you think of that? Again, hard to say whether, like Ferrari and what Bonotto said, hard to say whether that is indeed the case at the moment, but that's what they've said. And what do you think of it? Let me know in the chat. Right. Let's see if I can find anything else. Any other pictures? And Racing Point, I've just seen, I've made sure to make clear with a quote saying we absolutely designed it ourselves. The RP20, and there's a quote saying, I can absolutely tell you, I can tell you absolutely, if I can speak English, I can tell you absolutely, categorically, all those designs are Racing Point from absolute scratch. Again, make of that what you will, and if you want to believe it or not, then it's up to you, but that's what they've said. And, well, I tend to believe them. Right. Let's look at the chat as Lewis Hamilton's about to come out on track on C4 tyres. So maybe a bit of a faster, lower fueled run here for Lewis Hamilton. Right. Agent Smith, well, if Marco said it, I don't know. If Christian said it, it is maybe right, question mark. It doesn't say who said it. I'm guessing it's someone who's maybe not Marco or Horner, but it's someone of a high-ish stature in the team. And I'm guessing if they're saying that, that's through looking at the data so far collected after 2.5 days of testing. And again, who knows if that is indeed the case. Erwin says, it is weird that one day after it was discovered, the FIA comes up with this reg update. Yeah, the FIA, and you made sure to finish it off with what I was going to say. The FIA already knew of the system. James Allison also said that, what was it he said? That they were already in communication with the FIA over the legality of it. And I've seen some stuff on Twitter today that Mercedes weren't. This isn't just a new thing they've been working on. They've been working on this for a long time. So, yeah. To the FIA, that wouldn't have been a new thing. But it's also funny to think, as someone made a good point of it. I can't remember who made it on Twitter yesterday, but someone said that if F1 testing was not broadcast on TV this year, then no one would be talking about it because there'd be no onboard camera of it. Well, there would, but it wouldn't be shown. So, interesting to note there. And I think that's actually the point of testing and broadcasting it. So we can get, as fans, a better idea of what is actually going on as Hamilton is on the C4 tyres and going through turn 3. And let's see what his first sector time is to see how quick he really is going. And he's only half a tenth down on Valtteri Bottas in the first sector. So if he keeps pushing like this is a proper quick lap from Lewis Hamilton. And that car, well, we don't know how quick it is in relation to the Red Bull and the Ferrari, but it does look bloody quick. As it now comes through the turn 9 that is now just flat out. DRS open. Let's see what the middle sector time is like. It is 3 tenths down on Bottas. Remember though, all slight oversteer on entry to turn 10. Front end though was fine going in. Remember, Bottas was on the C5, so if Hamilton can be, you know, half a second off or something around that, then that would be pretty good for Lewis Hamilton as he comes round, comes to the line. This will be an improved lap time. What is it? It's a... No, he doesn't improve his lap time. Goes slightly slower, but does a 1 minute 16.7. But the first 2 sectors were pretty quick. And just to notify you guys as to what Hamilton did in qualifying last year, it was a 16.0. So, yeah. He is definitely afternoon, in this afternoon session, definitely not pushing as hard as he could. As I'm sure he could go a lot faster, miles faster if he really wanted to. And Mercedes really could if they wanted to. John, where do I see the live footage to watch along with? The testing is being broadcast right now on Sky Sports F1. So if you want to watch along with me, then if you have Sky Sports F1 in the UK, then you can watch along with me and see what I'm talking about. But if you can't, then just listen along and I'll make sure to keep you guys up to date with what's going on in testing as Sebastian Vettel comes into the pits. And Hamilton, I don't know if he's doing a cool down lap before another quick one, or if he's going to come back into the pits. By the way, though, that lap time on the C4 that was slightly slower than his previous time, his quickest lap so far was done on the C3. So, again, he definitely can go a lot quicker. Because the C4 should be about half a second quicker than the C3. So, with the current fuel and engine mode he has, if it's similar to when he set that 116.6 earlier, then in theory, he should be able to do a low 1 minute 16 on that compound. But he's just cruising around at the moment. As some work is going on the Red Bull around the floor. I think under the car. Yeah, just all the Red Bull mechanics sat around talking up the car. But let's come to you guys in the chat again. Ewok, if anyone can work out between the bluffing and sandbagging, then they would be like Matteo Binotto. J. Krell, Ferrari is fine. They might not win the Constructors this season, but if they get things right, it's good enough. Well, we don't know if they have got things right or wrong. Because again, they have not shown anything close to their maximum. And they're definitely not pushing as hard as Mercedes or Red Bull so far in testing. So I think definitely out of, I think maybe all the 10 teams, they're sandbagging the most. Again, though, does not mean they're quick. Does not mean they're quick at all. Just means they're saving more fuel and power, but doesn't necessarily mean that the lap time will come once they start pushing as hard as possible. As Vettel comes back into the pit lane on the medium compound tyres. Antonio Giovinazzi's on an outlap, so is Pierre Gasly. Spider Monkey asks, Chaz, any new things happening for the channel in 2020? Possibly. I can't really get into it now, and I don't really want to, because I'd rather wait until we get closer to the time where I'm, possibly planning to do these newer things. I'm hoping to go to a race in 2020. Don't know which one yet, but I'm hoping to go to a Grand Prix. And what I will do with content at that Grand Prix may represent a new style of content for what I do when I'm at a Grand Prix. Kind of in a football fan TV-ish kind of way. I'm not saying I'm going to be interviewing fans, but in terms of being at the track and the way I'm going to do my content, if you know what I mean. Other than that, I mean, there'll be maybe some graphical changes. You can see them on the screen right now compared to last year with the sidebar order, which I think looks better and clearer. The better and clearer timer ticker you can see there, which will also be the lap counter for this year. So yeah, some graphical changes, some slight improvements. There'll be some new bits of content probably this year, hopefully. But yeah, there you go. And by the way, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I will be uploading a review of day 3 later on at 7 PM UK time. And as well, I will be live for, hopefully, the morning session of day 4, which is next Wednesday. And then the afternoon session of day 5 and day 6, which is next Thursday and Friday, respectively. So, and as well, also, I'll do the day reviews later that evening at 7 PM UK time as well. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen. And also, don't forget to subscribe because we are very close to 10,000 subscribers. I know when I started, I was less than 100 away. So it would be great if we got that, say, before the end of the week. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or go to my homepage and do it there. And hit the notifications bell. And smash that like button if you want to see the content continue. And it does help me see whether you guys do enjoy, the content. So smash the hell out of the like button. As we're currently watching Daniel Ricciardo on circuit. And if I do hit 10,000 subs, I will probably do a video for it. Don't know when it will come out, but I will probably do a video for it, saying thank you. And just probably doing a little channel update as well for what's to come as well. Agent Smith, Chaz said, don't change anything, mate. It is good enough. If possible, more technical analysis. But other than that, yeah, we'll definitely be doing some technical analysis this year, of course. I mean, I'm probably going to, and I was planning on showing the DAS system on screen, screenshots of it, moving back and forth in the stream. But I thought, you know what, instead of doing it in a rush way, why not just wait until a later video and do it in a proper, more detailed way? So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll probably have a piece on that before the season starts in one of my season previews. As to that system and what we think it does, and just the technical, I guess, explanation for what that system is. So yeah, I'll definitely do something on that. I don't know if it'll be his own video, but it will be in a video for sure before the season starts in Melbourne. And then if there's any other technical pieces, of course, we'll do it in streams or, again, as a part of a longer formed video. As on track, Ricciardo, Gasly, Giovinazzi, and now Lewis Hamilton on track on an outlap on C4 tyres. Don't know if it's the same compound. Probably is. But he goes again. There's Lewis Hamilton. Add a PayPal link for donations. I am in the midst of setting up a donation service, whether it's that or, I don't know, what's the other one called? Patreon. Probably will get it set up sometime this year. Hopefully more so the early part of the year than the latter part. So yeah, I'll try to make sure to do that as well. And then, if I do set up a donation service, then I will try to offer some kind of extra content on there, for people who are, donating money. As Hamilton comes to the end of this lap and then come straight back into the pits again. So far today, Mercedes have done just over 100 laps. Giovinazzi now on 126 laps, but that's not the most amount of laps for any team. I think Renault have just gone over 140, so Renault might be able to get to 200 laps by the end of today, which would be them really catching up on certain other teams in terms of reliability, track time, running, all that stuff. Right, let's look at some other comments here if I can. Oh, live reporting. Yes, Chaz. It won't be live reporting, but it'll be me, you know, at the circuit. So it'll give a bit more of a real life, you know, aspect to it. And then, yeah, I'll, you know, give it a go. If it goes well, then, you know, keep doing it. If I enjoy it, you know, I'll keep doing it. But again, I don't know yet if I absolutely am going to a race this year. I want to, but I don't know if I am. So I'll let you guys know when I know for sure that I'm going to a Grand Prix. As Sebastian Vettel's at the back of the Ferrari garage having a drink. Looks as though he is not getting ready to get in the car. Looks as though, I don't know if his day's over, but he looks as though he ain't getting in the car for another half an hour at least. And there's only an hour and a half to go off the first test. TMDR Carda, I think it is. If I have mispronounced that, I'm sorry, but it's a bit difficult to pronounce. But anyway, he says, speaking of the channel, please keep doing your F1 game lap, guys. Those were amazing and very cool. I will. My previews are still going to be happening, obviously. So the last video before the Australian Grand Prix weekend will be the Australian Grand Prix preview, and that will definitely be in there somewhere in the video. And then obviously for the other races as well, except of course for Vietnam and Zandvoort, because the F1 2020 game won't be out until after those two races have happened. Right. Let's find some other comments here if I can. You guys. Prussia, how many laps did Ferrari do so far? So far today? Well, they definitely haven't done 100. I don't know, 60, 70? Probably. But yeah, nothing as much as what it should be. And again, it looks as though Sebastian's not getting back in the car for another half an hour at least. There's some work going on at the rear of the McLaren. Looks like around the exhaust pipe or diffuser. I just want to, though, post a picture of this Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, because this is a stunning picture of the Mercedes car. And you might not like the new little red bit on top, but you've got to admit, in the sunlight, what a stunning car that is. And it may be the best car this year, but even if it isn't, it is a beautiful looking racing car. And it's got one of the best ever at the wheel of it. But there was something I wanted to read out, because I just saw another little quote about Red Bull. Again, from AMUS. Red Bull, there's just a small quote apparently from them on Ferrari's, I guess, problems or issues. They said, or whoever was speaking for Red Bull said, they seem to have their problems. They don't do long runs. That's why they're difficult to read. And that's exactly why I keep saying that even if Binotto is correct, or more so correct, we can't say how quick the Ferrari is, because they're not, you know, they're not showing anything of speed. The only thing you can really say for Ferrari so far is reliability has been mostly good, or, you know, mostly okay. But in terms of race pace or lower fuel pace, that we can't say anything at all, because they're just not doing those long fueled runs or the, you know, 5 lap lower fuel runs. They're just not doing any of it. So yeah, it's hard to say what's going on exactly. Scoop Richardson says, good idea for donations. What am I on about? Maybe enough for you to travel to every race with the press. There's press pass and trademark clearance. We're behind you, Chaz. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, if that, if that did help towards that, then yeah, that would be great. But I've actually looked at the whole, how to get a press pass. And well, if I started today with the aim of getting that, it would probably take me another 2 to 3 years to get one. So it does take, you need a lot of, well, you need to tick every box, basically. As they're showing the Renault pit wall. Alan Permain now the Renault pit wall. A lifer at Enstone, of course, when they were Benetton. And then Renault. Then Lotus. And then Renault again. He's one of the most experienced engineers in Formula One. And definitely still very good at what he does. As Ricciardo is on a current 15-lap run. And his current pace is a 1:21.0, which for a race pace, if he's running race fuel, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good for race pace. If he's running 50, 60 laps of fuel, that's pretty good for Daniel Ricciardo. And on board, the Renault car looks, again, not amazing. There's not an area if you could say, well, it really does look good. But with higher fuel, it looks nicely balanced. But, right. Let's look at the chat to see what you guys are saying. Let me just try and find some comments, if I can, that I've missed. Ben Farrell, how long will it be before Red Bull threatens to quit F1 again? I don't think they will for a long time now, because they haven't got that excuse anymore. If Honda keep, making this progress that they have been making, then what's Red Bull's excuse? And talking to Red Bull, Adrian Newey in the Red Bull pits, looking at the rear of the Red Bull car. But, and Albon looks like he's going to come out on track now. But, the only reason they threatened to quit was because of the lack of power they had. And the reason they threatened to quit was because the last set of regulations was all really to do with power. And, the power units and all that. So, I mean, if we let's say we get to 2025 and Red Bull and Honda are still together and Honda produce a shit power unit, then, yeah, maybe again you'll be hearing Red Bull saying they're going to quit unless this team comes or this manufacturer comes. But for the next 5 years, until the next, I'd say, power unit regulation change, which is, we're thinking, from what the news has been in the past 2 months, we're thinking it's going to be 2025. Then the next set of regulations after 2021. And those 2025 regulations, we don't know anything for sure about them, but what we do know is that the power units are probably going to have increased electrification, which I know you guys will be groaning about, but there you go. That's the only thing I know so far is, yeah, just more electrification of the V6 hybrids, maybe some adjusting of certain parts as Gasly keeps on his race run on the C2 compound of tyre. Jay Crayer, would something like live commentating better than work better than Watchalong? People seem to misunderstand the channel, which is causing the dislikes. If there's I understand what you mean, but if you don't, and obviously I know you do, but to the people who don't understand what a watch-along is, that's not my problem or anyone else's problem who does understand what a watch-along is. There's, it doesn't say anywhere in my title, description, and I never say once that I'm going to show it live. It's pretty clear what a watch-along is. It's me and, say, Nib, if he's on, watching along and commentating on whatever's going on, and you guys watching the same session and us enjoying it together as a community. That's what a watch along is supposed to be. As Lewis Hamilton, by the way, is on the C5 compound now. But yeah, if people don't get that, then that's not my problem or anyone else's problem, or anyone's problem who understands the format or what a watch along is. If you don't know what a watch along is, I've just explained it. If you still don't get it, then I can't help you. As Hamilton about a 10th down on Bottas of the first sector. And front end going in really nicely into turn 5. Really getting into the apex. Same in turn 7. And turn 8 is fine. Flat through turn 9. Going about 260 kilometers an hour. Comes to the end of the middle sector. And he's only a 10th. Maybe a 10th and a half down. So this will be an improved lap time. But again, Mercedes still not pushing anywhere close to their limit. And all runs a bit wide in turn 13. Would have lost probably 3-4 tenths of a second with that. But that still should be an improvement for Lewis Hamilton. A lap time comes to the line. And does he improve? No, he does not. No, he does. He goes about a 10th and a half quicker. So down to a 16.5. But he probably could have done a low 16 if he didn't run wide on the exit of turn 13. So there you go. Mercedes 1-2. As Albon on an outlap now. Gasly still doing a race run. So is Daniel Ricciardo. A proper Chazza answer. It's true, innit? Again, if you don't know what a watch along is, all you have to do is ask or, you know, find out yourself and then you can understand. But if you know what a watch along is, but you'll still, you know, complain that we're not showing live footage, then just get lost. Because, again, it's not hard. It's not a difficult concept to understand. So many people do it now as well. It's not like a new, innovative thing. There's so many other channels that do it. Even in the F1 community. F1 Word does it, of course. You know, other channels do it. True Geordie does it for certain sporting events. Even, what was it, the WWE YouTube channel does it for certain events. So it's not a hard concept to understand. It's I guess the point of a watch along is just so we as a community, you know, the creators of the channel and you guys, the fans, can enjoy the highs of, you know, what we cover together. That's the point. That's the goal of a watch along. The goal of a watch along is not to show it live and just stream it, because again, that's breaking copyright law. Anyway, Ben Farrell asks, "Do you think Haas is a lost cause with if I can speak, with a lineup of Grosjean and Magnussen?" Not with Magnussen, but with Grosjean. As I said last year, I don't get why he is still a driver in Formula One. He's had enough time, I think, to get it, you know, to get better, get sorted in the areas he's weak in. But no, hasn't got better, and I don't think he really will this season. I think Magnussen is fine. He's very quick, and I think, honestly, if Haas can sort out their race pace woes, then Kevin Magnussen could be a surprise this season. I don't think last season was Kevin Magnussen, you know, related. I think it was, you know, just Haas, and the same for Grosjean some of the time as well. Just Haas did not give their drivers a good enough car. But I think definitely for 2021, if Grosjean again does the same as what he's done before, Grosjean's got to go and they've got to get someone new in. Maybe, I don't know, a Pierre Gasly, a Daniel Kvyat, you know, one of those two. Or an Antonio Giovinazzi if he gets kicked out the Alfa Romeo. You know, someone like that. But I think definitely for 2021, I think Haas should probably, if Grosjean underperforms again, probably, you know, go for someone new in his seat. But if Grosjean and Magnussen have all right seasons, but the Haas car is not that great, then you're going to have to keep them as well. You're going to want that continuity going into a new set of regulations next year. Last thing you want is new drivers getting used to a team and the cars are completely different. I think the best thing to have is the same lineup from one year to the next when there is a new set of regulations. As Alex Albon starts a race run, I think, or is continuing on a race run on the C2 compound. Lewis Hamilton is on an outlap, so is Antonio Giovinazzi. Hamilton is pitted in W11 Mercedes is on screen. Ewok. Some people are not very smart. Other people are geniuses like Matteo Binotto. Indeed. Agent Smith, it says Watchalong, and any person with a bit of common sense knows that you're not allowed to show it. Even if you want to, it would be a shutdown. Exactly. But there are some people out there that not only do they not understand it, I think there are some people that do, but still want live footage anyway. And, you know, it doesn't just happen with me. It happens with everyone. Anyone who does a watch along will get people saying, oh, where's the live footage? It's not going to happen, you know. And, you know, even if I showed it, I'd have to do a lot to add or transform the original work because that's how fair use works. You can't just show the live event and not add anything to it like that one of the one channel had yesterday where they were showing testing, just showing it. You're just showing it, you're going to get banned. And you deserve to, but if you're doing it in a fair use way, then I guess you can get away with it, but I ain't going to take that risk. Lance Stroll is now on an outlap. As now we cut back to Alex Albon. And I'll be honest, guys, unless something more so interesting happens in the next 20 minutes, I might end the stream a bit early because I will admit this is getting a bit boring. Not, you guys. You guys are the only reason I'm still on. As Giovinazzi does a 17.9. Don't know what tyres he was on, but it does a 17.9, stays in P7. But, yeah, if it doesn't get any more interesting, I will probably end the stream early because I don't want to, bore you guys with me being bored. And if nothing's going on, then I guess what's the point? But I'll give it, until 1 hour to go, and then we'll see if anything, new or interesting happens. But if F1 just continues doing race runs, which, of course is important, but in terms of entertainment, it's not very entertaining unless it's actually a Grand Prix race. So, yeah, I'll give it another 18 minutes, and then we'll see if it's getting any more interesting than it has done before, and then I'll make a decision. But I still will, though, upload a review of the day at 7 p.m. no matter what. But, yeah, may end the stream early because, yeah, quite boring is this session. And Giovinazzi did it on a set of C4s, meaning that lap time, if it wasn't lower fuel, was not good. A 1:17.9 on the same tyre, that's not a... Again, we don't know the engine mode and fuel load, but I'm guessing his fuel load is not that big. He will be saving a bit of power. Oh! Daniel Ricciardo. I was saying how Renault have ran so long today and done so well, and Daniel Ricciardo has broke down in the same place Kimi Raikkonen did. Don't know if it's the same reason they've deliberately ran out of fuel or not, but Ricciardo has stopped on the track right on the entry curve to turn 9, so that's not a good place to be stuck, and that will be a red flag in his purple helmeted Renault. And yeah, red flag, surely will be waving in a minute. And yeah, there you go. Red flag for Daniel Ricciardo's stopped car. But yeah, that lap time of Giovinazzi, 17.9 on that compound. Again, I know they can probably go a bit faster, but that's still not an impressive lap time at all from Giovinazzi. Imroll is C5 the fastest tyre? Yeah, that's the fastest tyre available, and Bottas and Hamilton have used it. But yeah, they can go a lot more. They can go a lot quicker than that. Ricky Sanguinetti, I think I pronounced that correctly. Says, we are happy here, but if you are not, please leave silently. J. Krell, this is not boring. People would have the channel if it was. Again, though, I mean, look, if this was if it was a practice session, it wouldn't be 4 hours long, would it? But you know what I mean? If it was if this was a proper session that was a bit shorter, then I wouldn't be bored because it would have a lot more action to it. And this is the only downside of preseason testing, and I think I said this on Tuesday when I was talking about how I'm not going to cover the entire day, because I was originally planning to do the entire day of each day. But I was like, testing can be boring. I'm not going to do the whole day because I'll be bored to tears by the end of each day of testing, and I'll end up probably hating it. I'm not hating it. It's just, this afternoon session hasn't been as interesting as yesterday's afternoon session, or even the morning session of day one. So, yeah. But, yeah. Again, as I said on Tuesday, on my Tuesday night stream where I looked at all the cars that have been revealed so far, testing, it's great to see the new cars, but testing, because of how long it is during a day, it can, if you're watching it on TV, it can get boring quick. So, and I'll say this again, because I did go to the second test last season. If you're ever thinking of going to testing, you absolutely should. At the Circuit De Catalunya, you absolutely should, because one, you get to see the cars more so than you do on a Grand Prix weekend. I mean, you get to see the cars more so on one day of testing than you do on an entire Grand Prix weekend. So, that's a plus. And also, the experience there is better. The weather, if you're living in a colder country than Spain, the weather is pretty great. Especially in the middle of the day, it's quite hot. It can get quite cold, at dawn and dusk, but it's pretty, pretty good event to go to. Again, the weather is pretty good for this time of year as well, in Europe. And in terms of looking at the cars as well, I mean, obviously lap times, you can read some slight bit into it, but also it's good to look at the cars from the track side because you can get a closer look at the cars and a closer look at whether they're, what cars are quicker than the others. So, in my opinion, the best way to enjoy testing is to be there. Because I'd say probably the best way to enjoy a Grand Prix isn't necessarily by being at the actual race, because with the amount of information you get at Formula One Grand Prix, and Formula One is such an information-heavy business, you can miss out on certain key aspects of a race because you're not able to access that information that you would normally if you're watching the race on TV. Lap times, pit stop, all that stuff. But for testing, because lap times don't matter that much, and it's really just about handling and balance of the cars, which you can see at the track and on TV, it's I think, again, a great thing, an event to go to, in real life. So if you're going to go to any one event, testing is good to go to, because again, you don't get to see the cars racing, but if you want to just see the cars for a longer period of time, with less people around, then preseason testing is the ticket for you. Right. Gina, hello boys, how is Red Bull and Ferrari doing? Well, nothing different to yesterday or the day before. Yeah, they're just not pushing, sandbagging still. Mercedes look as though they're pushing slightly harder today. Maybe not slightly harder, a bit harder today than they were yesterday or the day before. But Red Bull and Ferrari, yeah, definitely still have a lot more speed to come than what they've shown. So yeah, a lot more to come yet for Red Bull and Ferrari. Hopefully in the second test we get to see more of it. And yeah, this red flag period, by the way, I think is our third red flag of the day, which is normal for a testing day. But of course, for almost 2 full days, we didn't have a red flag of day 1 and almost day 2 until Raikkonen deliberately caused one. So, yeah. Red flags, well, since the red flags have started late yesterday, now they're coming in plenty of ways. And note there's actually been 4 red flags, just been reminded by my own brain. We've had 4 red flags today now. Vettel stopping, Latifi stopping, Magnussen crashing, and Ricciardo stopping on track. So 4 red flags today. Maybe that's why the track action today isn't as interesting. But there you go. Let me just read the chat. Rooksfoot, how much access to the site or track, I'm guessing you're saying or asking, do you get it testing more than a race weekend? Certain areas of the grandstands and certain areas that would normally be open if you have a general admission ticket. Certain areas are closed, but most of them are open. So, for example, the bank at turn 9 that, is on the left-hand side, if you look at it from the onboard cam of a driver, that is normally a good place to go. The one overlooking turn 7 and turn 8. There's a walkway, down turn 1. The main grandstand on the pit straight is open, of course. There's a couple grandstands down the way as well as the pit straight that is open. As well, the banking to the right of the onboard camera of a driver through turn 1 and turn 2, the bank up there is open to watch the cars from. And the stadium section at the back of the track as well, not the entire stadium section, but the first bit of the stadium section is also open to watch the cars from. So yeah, I'd say most of the track is accessible as it would be on a race weekend. Certain areas are not, but most of the areas are. Right, let's let me see if I can find a couple more comments here if I can. And to be honest, yeah, I'm probably going to come off soon because yeah, this afternoon session hasn't been as good as I was hoping for. And don't worry guys, I'm not coming off because I don't want to talk to you guys anymore. It's just that, and I said this on Tuesday night, after I took my little mental break from doing the channel, is from now on, I only want to do content that I want to do, not content that I feel as though I need to do or have to do. So, from now on, if I don't want to do something, then I ain't going to do it. And that's the way it should be, because at the end of the day, this is a hobby of mine that happens to earn me money, some money. But yeah, if it, doesn't become interesting anymore, if I don't want to do something, and that'll go for not just, if I do come off in a minute, but anything, then I'm not gonna do it. And it, I shouldn't be doing this isn't just for me. This is for, anyone in life. If you're not doing something you want to do, then you've got a big problem on your hands. So, yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Once the red flag comes back in, we'll see what the drivers who come out do. If they go out and do more race runs, then I'll probably just come off. But don't forget, guys, recorded video, a review of the day 3, coming at 7 PM UK time, which is in about 3 hours from now. So, yeah, I'll make sure to cover all of the events of day 3, all the talking points, and also talk about a bit who needs to improve in day 4 of testing next week and really in the second test. I think the only teams I can think of now that really need to show more is obviously the top 3 need to show more for their own sake, I guess. Especially Ferrari need to show more. Renault need to have a better test, need better reliability, and need to, I think, work on the single lap pace as well. Alfa Romeo need to show a lot more. And then the other teams will show more, but I don't think necessarily have to, because I don't think they are in as bad of a position as other teams. But yeah, Renault and Alfa Romeo and Ferrari stand out as teams that need to show more in the second test, to me. Gearbox issue for Renault. Let me just see if that is the case. Hold on. From what I've seen, the Renault car suddenly lost power from what I'm seeing on Twitter. So can't confirm yet whether it's a gearbox issue. Let me keep looking. Yeah, can't see at the moment, the confirmation of what the problem was, but just loss of power. If it was a gearbox problem, it probably wouldn't have been just a straight loss of power, though. And green flags now. Green flag. I wouldn't call it green flag racing, but you know what I mean. But yeah, green flags. Racing resumed. But, yeah, if it was a gearbox problem, I don't think it would have stopped as dramatically. So I'm not sure it is a problem with the gearbox, unless it has been confirmed, then obviously I'm wrong. Scoot Richardson, I'm enjoying it, bro. By all means, don't burn yourself out. Exactly. I don't want to get into that phase. And obviously, if I do it when I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing, then you guys will enjoy it more so as well. As Lando Norris, I think it is about to come out on track on medium compound tyres. And Lewis Hamilton is coming out on track in a moment as well on medium compound tyres as well. In the Mercedes. And there you go. And he comes out of the box. And out onto circuit. Also, Alex Albon out on track as well. I'll try and find a few final pictures for you guys. If I can. But can't find any at the moment. There's not that many, to be honest. Yeah, Norris on track. We're seeing him now, right now, in the, in my opinion, the best looking car of 2020, the McLaren MCL 35. Still does look very good, but I will admit we have not seen much of it in the last couple days in terms of lower fuel running. Carlos Sainz was pushing quite hard in the morning of day 1, but since the afternoon of day 1, McLaren have definitely been, sandbagging, running a lot of fuel. You know what I mean? So, yeah. McLaren, well, we are going to see, I think from every team, a lot more of what they're capable of in 2020. Starting on day 4 next Wednesday. As Lando Norris starts a lap. We'll see what Hamilton can do on the C3. See whether he's going to do a bit of a lowish fuel run. As he was, sorry, watching him from his face cam, I guess, camera, now cut off board. And the Mercedes flies through turn 9. And yeah, it looks like he's warming up for a lap. Again, don't know what type of lap or laps it's going to be, but warming up for another lap as Lance Stroll starts a run. And I think Albon has started a run as well. I think Albon's just continuing what he was doing on the C2. And, well, I'd say out of the top 3 teams, the team that's concentrated the most on race pace has to be Red Bull after the first test. Mercedes, I think today definitely have concentrated a bit more on the lower fuel running. But definitely through the first test, Red Bull have concentrated the most on race pace. Ferrari are holding a lot back, but that doesn't mean they're concentrating on race pace or running with tons of fuel all the time. Because again, as we said earlier, they aren't doing many laps, in a row. They're not doing like Giovinazzi did a few hours ago, 80, 90 laps in a row. They're not doing that. They're doing, 10, 15 laps here, then back in the pits. And then 10, 15 laps back in the pit. They're not really, like Albon's doing at the moment, or has been doing for the last couple of hours, getting out there and doing a, hour and a half stint in the car. So, yeah, I think definitely the team out of the top teams to concentrate the most on race pace has to be Red Bull. And in the midfield, I'd say the team to concentrate most on race pace in the midfield would have to be Haas F1, but they have a very good reason to do that because, of course, in last year, they were awful when it came to speed over the course of a Grand Prix distance, as Lewis Hamilton is, on a longer run, I'm pretty sure. And you know what, guys? I think, I'm going to come off in a minute because, looks as though we're going to have quite a boring end to the day. Ewok says, I don't think the Mercedes are as bulletproof as previous years. Well, they did have a reliability issue that put Bottas out of action for the last hour of day 2, but I wouldn't say they're unreliable, but not fully reliable, of course, but not as bad as maybe there was. I remember they said a couple of weeks ago, we've had some issues. Yeah, absolute bullshit is what I call that. By the way, though, before I go, I'm just going to pause my TV so I can read out the order. So you got Bottas, Hamilton have done their times on C5 tyres. Ocon, C4. Stroll, C4. Kvyat, C4. Verstappen, C2. 1.9 seconds down on Valtteri Bottas. Now, the difference between a C2 and a C5 compound is about a second and a half at least. So let's say they're running, or today, or when those laps were done, they were running similar programs, and the Red Bull is not, close to the Mercedes, but not too far away, or not as far away as they were this time last year. But again, we don't know exactly fuel loads and all that. Giovinazzi, C4 compound, and only a late 1 minute 17, which I think is not a good lap time at all. And then, Albon, his best time on a C2. Same with Gasly, same with Sainz. Grosjean on C3, Vettel C3, Ricciardo C2, Latifi C3. Then Norris and Magnussen have not really done anything of a low-fueled run. So, right, let me read out the chat. Any final comments, and then we'll get to the end of the stream. Sorry, guys, if you wanted me to continue for the final 57 minutes, but again, if I'm not enjoying it, then there's no point, continuing the stream when I myself am bored as fuck. So, again, not bored of you guys. It's just the track action. I just want, a bit more to go on. I'm not saying they need to be out there setting amazingly quick times all the time, but a few purples wouldn't go amiss. The pink Mercedes W10 is 4th, and Hakeem says, well done for today. Rooksfoot, it's Friday, knock off early. Right, let me see if I can find a final comment. I have missed. And you know what? I'll answer Ewok. So, and I think I've already said this, but I'll say it again, or answer, again. He asks, what are the next test days? So, next Wednesday is day 4, and then the day after is day 5, and then the day after that is day 6, and then that's testing over, and then there is exactly a fortnight to the first practice day in Melbourne, which I cannot wait for, the first practice day, the Australian Grand Prix. But we still got, you know, just under an hour left of day 3, and 3 full days of testing next week as well, where we should see a lot more of the pecking order and get a better idea of what is going on in 2020. But time to get rid of all of this and that. And guys, yeah, that is it for today's stream. Let me just get the last bit up. There you go. Thank you guys for coming along. Has been great as usual. You guys have kept me entertained for a long time, and your questions have been very, very, very good. So thank you very much for that. And thank you as well for just, not just today, but, you know, yesterday and the day before, for enjoying what we've covered so far of 2020 preseason testing. And again, I'll be live hopefully next Wednesday morning for the first 4 hours of day 4. By the way, you guys, if you're watching the coverage of Sky F1, they've got Alex, I think is it Alex Jakes or Jax, the F2 commentator on the screen. I never knew how small he was. He's so small. Sorry, I just had to comment on that. He's so incredibly small. But there you go. But yeah, thank you guys for coming along and being part of the stream. And yeah, I'm going to upload a review of day 3 later, and then my next video after that, guys, will be next Wednesday. So there will not be any content on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. But then I will make up for that with 2 videos on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, 2 on Friday. So don't worry, plenty of content coming up next week, but not until Wednesday, of course, at the earliest. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe for that content coming up. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Also, we're very close to 10k subs, so make sure to subscribe to get me to that magical number. And as well, you can do it there, and go to the channel page. You can do it there as well, and hit the notification bell, and as well smash the like button if you want to see this content continue on the channel. As well, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what did you think of the days so far and the day of testing, you know, day 3, and what have you thought of the first test? Who's looking good to you, who isn't, and what have you thought of, you know, the news that's happened so far on day 3? You know, comments by Bonotto as to how quick Ferrari are, or Red Bull. Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That's the best place for notifications of my videos and streams, and we have over 400 people in that server, and it is growing all the time. So if you want to join that community, and that server, by the way, is very active, if you want to join that community, make sure to do so. Link down below in the description. Also, follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110 to keep up to date with what I'm doing with the channel, you know, when I'm uploading, when I'm going live, all that stuff. As well, check out my website, chazerhd.com, for more content like this, and hit my Facebook page with a like as well. That's ChazerHDF1 on Facebook. But guys, until my review of day 3 coming up later on, and until my next, I guess, appearance on a stream next Wednesday for the morning session of day 4 of 2020 pre-season testing, it has been me, ChazerHD. Goodbye.